theyeshiva.net.
Okay, today we're going to explore the secret of Hoshana Raba in Halacha. The concept of Hoshana Raba is already in Mishnayos. In Masechta Sukkah, in Mishnayos Sukkah, Daf Mem Beis, the Mishnah calls it Yom Shvi Shel Arava. That's the name that the Chazal gave to what the day we call Hoshana Raba. The Mishnah Sukkah calls it Yom Shvi Shel Arava, which means the seventh day of the Arava. Whenever you say it's the seventh day of the Arava, it means you also had a first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth day of Arava. Because there was a special mitzvah of Arava that existed in the Beis HaMikdash. The Gemara explains in Masechta Sukkah, Daf Mem Dalet, two verses, two views about the source of the mitzvah of Arava in the Beis HaMikdash. The view of Abba Shaul, it has a source in Chumash. In Parshas Emor, when the Torah says to take the Dalet Minim on Sukkos, Ulakachtem Lachem Bayom HaRishon, Pri Eitz Hadar, Kapes Tmorim, Anaf Eitz Oves, Va'arvei Nochal. Aravas, willows from the brook, plural. Why plural? Arvei. And the answer is, Abba Shaul says, one is Achas LeLulav, Va'achas LeMikdash. One was the Arava that you put into the Lulav, but there's another Arava not connected to the Lulav at all, not connected to the Esrik, it belongs in the Beis HaMikdash. That's the view of Abba Shaul, and then there's the second view that it's a halacha l'Moshe Misinai. Even though in Chumash you have no mention of any mitzvah of Arava in the Beis HaMikdash, all we have mention of is the Daled Minim, Ulakachtem Lachem Bayom HaRishon, to shake the four species on the first day, and in the Beis HaMikdash 7 days, Usmachtem Lefnei Hashem Elokechem Shivas Yomim, because the mitzvah in the Beis HaMikdash was for 7 days. Outside of the Beis HaMikdash, the mitzvah to shake Dalet Minim is only day 1 of Sukkot. After the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai wanted that the Jewish people should remember the Beis HaMikdash, so he instituted that we shake Lulav 7 days of Sukkot, not only the first day. One of the institutions of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Zecher LaMikdash. But the mitzvah of Arava is not mentioned anywhere in Chumash. The second view is it's halacha l'Moshe Misinai. It was an oral tradition that Moshe gave from Sinai that every day of Sukkot there should be a mitzvah of Arava. What was this mitzvah of Arava? So the Chazal explained in Masechta Sukkah, they would bring Aravas, tall Aravas, very tall Aravas, and they would place them on the side of the Mizbeach, around the whole Mizbeach, around the whole altar, and the top of the Aravas would bend over on top of the Mizbeach. So the Aravas stood side by side, leaning on the walls of the Mizbeach. That's why they had to be quite tall, around 11 Amos, which would be very tall Aravas. Hard to find such willows. You're dealing with between 15 or 20 feet. I mean, you're dealing with tall Aravas that stood up at the wall of the Mizbeach. They went over the Mizbeach. And the Mishnah says, and every day of Sukkot they would go around, they would make a hakafa. They would encircle the altar once and say, Ana Hashem Hoshiyana, Ana Hashem Hatzlichana, or according to Rabbi Yehuda, Ani Vohu Hoshiyana. This is all in Masechta Sukkah. And on the 7th day, Shvi Shel Arava, the Mishnah says, on the 7th day, they also had the Aravas on top of the Mizbeach, on the side of the Mizbeach, but they would encircle the Mizbeach 7 times, not once, and they would do this on the 7th day, even on Shabbos, not only during the weekdays, even if the 7th day fell out on Shabbos. Once the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, the mitzvah of Arava of Torah was nullified, because the halacha of Arava is to place the Aravas by the Mizbeach in the Mishkan or in the Beis HaMikdash. There's no Beis HaMikdash. The mitzvah of Arava was one of these mitzvahs that was not practiced anymore because of the circumstances. However, as a Zecher LeMikdash, as a commemoration to what they did in the Beis HaMikdash, they instituted that we should do the mitzvah of Arava 1 day. Not 7 days, but 1 day. And they chose the 7th day. So the 7th day, we practice the mitzvah of Arava. We take a special, what we call the Hoshanas, we take a special Arava, or some take more than one Arava. Lefi the minig of the Arizal, lefi Kabbalah, 5 Aravas, 5 Hoshanas that became very custom spread in many Jewish communities. Why? When was this instituted? So the Gemara says it's either a takonas neviim or a minig neviim. The neviim in the beginning of the second Beis Hamikdash, Anshe Knesset Agdoyle, Chagai, Zcharia, Malachai, who were during the era of the Churban Beis Hamikdash, when there was no Arava anymore, Churban Bayis Rishon, they instituted that there should be a mitzvah Arava, Zecher Lemikdash. The difference if it's Takonas Nevi'im or Minig Nevi'im is if you make a bracha. If it was a Takonas Nevi'im, we would make a bracha. The halacha is we don't make a bracha on the mitzvah of Arava. Why don't we say Asher Kedeshanu b'mitzvaysav v'tzivanu al mitzvah Arava, just like we do with Chanukah candles, or with reading the Megillah, or with saying Hallel, as we did today, or with any other mitzvah d'Rabbanan, because it wasn't a Takonas Nevi'im, it was a Minig Nevi'im. It's two views in Masechta Sukkah. And just like they made a commemoration for the mitzvah of Arava, not all 7 days, but one day, they made a second commemoration for the Beis HaMikdash. And that is the hakafas that we do around the bimah. Just like in the Beis HaMikdash, they used to circle the Mizbeach every day once, and Hoshana Raba 7 times. And what were they holding when they circled the Mizbeach? So some actually say they were holding the Arava. The Rambam and others say they were actually holding a lulav. So we do the same thing, that every day of Sukkot, we do a hakafa around the bimah, in the shul, and Hoshana Raba, we encircle, we go around 7 times, just like in the Beis HaMikdash. This is another institution that they made Zecher L'Mikdash. One institution was to take an Arava on Hoshana Raba on the 7th day, and to hold the Arava, and to daven with the Arava, to clap the Arava, chayftin as Arava, to bang the Arava, to pound the Arava. And the second thing is to encircle the bimah every day once, and Hoshana Raba 7 times. The circlings, called hakafas, are of course accompanied with the texts of Hoshanas, in which we daven, we beseech, we request, we pray, and we sing. And the Gemara already in Masechta Sukkah Daf Lamed Gimel calls the Daled Minim, the Agudas Halulav, the Lulav, and the other Minim, the Gemara already calls it Hoshana. The Gemara already calls the lulav and the other species Hoshana, because when they would go around, why is it called Hoshana? Hoshana means please help. Hoshana, Hosha, help, no, please. Hoshana, because they would go around with the lulav and they would say Hoshanas. On the 7th day, they went around 7 times. They said more Hoshanas. Today, there's many different nuschayas, many different texts of what you say on Hoshana Raba. But I believe according to all the versions of davening, all the communities, you repeat the Hoshanas of the first 6 days in addition to the 7th day Hoshanas. And that's probably the reason most authors give why the name became Hoshana Raba, even though the Mishnah calls it Yom Shvi Shal Arava. Why is it called Hoshana Raba? Hoshana Raba means many Hoshanas, or the great Hoshana, or a lot of Hoshana, because simply many Hoshanas were said on that day as they encircled the Mizbeach 7 times and as we encircle the Bimah 7 times. This is all Hoshana Raba when somebody learns Mishnayos, Gemara, Masechta Sukkah, and the Rishonim Lahalach. But then there's a whole other component of Hoshana Raba that ostensibly has no source, not in Mishnah, not in Gemara. It comes from Zohar. And that is Hoshana Raba as a semi-Yom Kippur, a new Yom Hadin, a day of judgment. It's a different Hoshana Raba. It's not only the 7th and last day of Sukkot, the last day to shake the Lulav and Esrog, the last day when they used to put the Aravas in the Beis HaMikdash. It's a whole different experience. It's a day of judgment and therefore a day of forgiveness. And the first source we have for this is in Zohar, in Parshas Tzav. It's in your first source sheet. You could see the words. If it's a long shtickle in Zohar there, I took here one line. Zohar Daf Lamed Aleph Amid Beis in Tzav. U'beyomer Shviyah de Chag, on the 7th day of Sukkot, hu siyume de dinne da alma. That's the culmination of the din of the world. The Yemei Hadin, the days of judgment that began on Rosh Hashanah, continued throughout Aseret Yemei Tshuva, and ostensibly were finished on Yom Kippur. Chasmeinu? No, it's not over yet. What's the expression? It's not over till it's all over. Hoshana Raba, that's Siyume de Dinne da Alma. That's the end of the judgment of the world. Upiskin nofki mibei malkin. That's when the kvitlach, the tzetelach, the notes come out from the house of the king. What the Zohar says is There is the time when you write the contract, there is signing the contract, and then there is delivering the contract, sending out the contract, transmitting it. So the Rosh Hashanah is the ksiva. It's written, Avinu Malkeinu Kasvenu. Yom Kippur is the chasima, the sealing of the contract, the signature, it's signed, but it's still in the judge's chamber. It still didn't go out anywhere. It doesn't have an impact. Nobody knows about it yet. Hoshana Raba, Nafki Piskin Mebei Malka, that's when the Piskin, the documents, the shtaros, the decrees go out from the house of the king, which is why in many communities the custom is to wish a gittin kvittel. What's the connection between a kvittel? After Yom Kippur, suddenly it becomes not a gmar chsima tova, but a gittin kvittel. So people who are used to it are used to it, but you have to understand that for the uninitiated, they come in. So a few days it's ksiva v'chsima tova, then suddenly it changes to chsima, gmar chsima tova, then suddenly it changes to a gittin kvittel. So this is based on the Zohar. There's a time to wish a ksiva tova, there's a time to wish a chsima and gmar chsima tova, and then there's a time to wish a guten kvittel. The time kvittel, which means a note, piska is a note, a zettel in Yiddish, or a kvittel, that's what goes out on Hoshana Raba. When you read Hoshana Raba Masechta Sukkah, there's no zecher for this. Hoshana Raba is part of Yom Tov. It's part of Zman Simchasenu. It's the 7th day. It's the last day before you start a new Yom Tov, Shmini Atzeres, which is both independent and not independent, as the Gemara explains in Sukkah Daf Mem Ches. Shmini Atzeres is both a continuation, and for 6 things it's not a continuation. Pazer Koshev, it's independent, as the Gemara says, the 6 things in which Shmini Atzeres is independent. But the Zohar says no. It belongs to the category of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. It's the final day of judgment, and therefore it's the final day of atonement. And as a result of this, in Tur even, and in Shulchan Aruch, and in Rishonim and Acharonim, there's another dimension to Hoshana Raba. As it's brought in Halachin, Tur and in Shulchan Aruch, the various minhagim and customs of Hoshana Raba. People say a guten kvittel. It says laharbes b'mizmoirim. People say the whole tilim. It says lias neurim kol halayla. People are up the whole night of Hoshana Raba. Some people have a minig to wear a kittel. Some of the Rishonim bring that there was a minig by some people to say in Hoshana Raba zachreinu l'chayim alachafetz b'chayim micha moicha v'rachaman. It becomes a semi Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Some people daven longer. I mean, everybody davens longer. It's a very long davening, but the different Hoshanas with different bakashas and different slichas and different kaparis. Almost like a mini or semi-Yom Kippur. It's interesting that there's a Yerushalmi that already indicates that Hoshana Raba is a unique day outside of being Yom Tov. Yerushalmi Rosh Hashanah, Perek Hey Halacha Ches, Oisi Yom Yidroshim. Yeshaya Navi says, for me, Oisi, for me, they search what day. Yom, day. So the Yerushalmi says there's 2 days that Jews search for God. Zutkiya va'arava. The day of Tkiya and the day of Arava. So the Pnei Moshe, the great commentator on Yerushalmi, says, Yom shel Tkiya v'yom shel Arava, shahakol boyim l'spalo yachad b'beis HaKnesses. Twice a day that Jews come together to daven in Shul. Rosh Hashanah and Hoshana Raba. It's interesting, not Yom Kippur. So when Yeshaya Navi says, Oisi Yom, you come for 2 days, you remind yourself about me, it's Rosh Hashanah and Hoshana Raba. We know the concept of Jews who come 3 days a year to Shul. It's a well-known phenomenon in America and other communities. 2 days of Rosh Hashanah and 1 day of Yom Kippur. But here you have to add another day, and that is Hoshana Raba. I don't know how popular Hoshana Raba today is in the culture that comes in Hoshana and Yom Kippur, but the Yerushalmi says Rosh Hashanah and Hoshana Raba. So you see already in Yerushalmi, not only in Zohar, that there's something Yom Arava that you come to Shul for. So we have 2 Hoshana Rabas, or to put it differently, a tale of 2 Hoshana Rabas. We have Hoshana Raba in classic Mishnayos and Gemara, where it's part of a Yom Tov, and there was a special mitzvah of Arava that was done with more oomph and more details than the first 6 days, in terms that it was done on Shabbos, and they did it 7 times around the Mizbeach, and the Zecher Bizman Hazeh. And then you have in Zohar a day of judgment, the day that the documents, the edicts goes out from the chamber of the judge, so it's a day of atonement. According to the Zohar, why did this happen on Hoshana Raba? Why is the 7th day of Sukkot suddenly the end of Yom Kippur? You have Rosh Hashanah, you have Yom Kippur, you have Sukkot, and on the 7th day of Sukkot, Hoshana Raba, you're back to Yom Hadin. And is the only source for this basically Kabbalah, Zohar, and completely not the world of Nigla, which would be very interesting. That a whole concept of Hoshana Raba, besides this Yerushalmi, which is a hint, it's a psaremes, that it's similar to Rosh Hashanah, the whole institution of Hoshana Raba as a day of Din and Kapara seems to be exclusively Kabbalistic, which may be the case. It's not the only thing in Judaism that's origin is Teres HaNista, Teres HaKabbalah, but in Nigla, in other words, in Shas and Poiskim, before the Zohar, you don't have any element of this of Hoshana Raba. That's how people thought throughout history. There's like two Hoshana Rabbas, and as so many things in Jewish history, they come together in the cholent of Jewish ritual and practice and observance and celebration. Various things, halachas and perspectives and ashkafas from Nigla and Nister come together. In our generation, however, somebody was mechadish, what you could say is a chidush maftia. There was a man who simply, I don't even think it was difficult for him to see. He introduced a very novel idea about Hoshana Raba, and I say it's a chidush maftia, because as far as I know, nobody says this before. Until today, even those who know his works very well are not very familiar with this chiddush. And here I'm talking about an insight, a novel insight, that was introduced by the Rogatchover Gaon. The Rogatchover Gaon, his name was Rabbeinu Yosef Rosen. He was born in 1858, Tov Reish Yud Ches. He passed away Yud Aleph Adar Tov Reish Tzadik Vav, 1936. As you know, he was the Sar HaTorah. He was a Gaon not only relative to his generation, but relative to many generations. A unique, unprecedented mind. The Rogatchover Gaon was the Rav, he was born in Rogatchov, but he was the Rav of Dvinsk, together with the Ur Sameach, Reb Meir Simcha HaKoyen. Dvinsk is a city in Latvia today. And the Rogatchover Gaon passed in 1936, and this is his chiddush when it comes to Hoshana Raba. But in order to understand what he says in a few lines, we must have context. Because as is usually his derech, he writes very brief, very concise, so we must have context. And we change the subject completely from Hoshana Raba, from Sukkot, from Yom Kippur, to a completely different item. Generally speaking, when it comes to karbonos, when it comes to sacrifices, most people's minds shut down. Karbonos and tumah v'tara, don't bother me. Leave me alone. Because the first time we're introduced to it in yeshiva, it's usually so cryptic, it's so obscure. You don't know if you're coming or you're going, you just give up on this topic. It's like, okay, here we go again. So the chatos was done when? And the blood was sprinkled where? Okay, I got it. That and tumah v'tara, we leave it for a few people in a generation to try to make sense out of it. But the truth is, it's an injustice that was done to karbonos and tumah v'tara, because really it's a cohesive sugya, and it's very explanatory, and it actually is very fascinating and interesting. But a person needs a teacher in it. A person needs a teacher to be able to grasp the system, the structure, the evolution, and the entire order of things, literally every single day in the Beis HaMikdash. One of the interesting karbonos that you came across at some point is called a carbon par helem dover shel tzibur. A sacrifice that was a par, an ox. Helem dover shel tzibur means a thing got concealed from the community. Meaning, this wasn't a regular mistake, this was a communal error. And as we will see, not just a community, a four-shay community, a small community, we're talking about an error of Klal Yisrael. Tzibur here means the Jewish people. Helem davar shel tzibur, there was an erroneous decision made by the collective body of the Jewish people, and when they figure out they made a mistake, they brought a special offering in the Beis HaMikdash, which was a bull. The source of this is in Chumash Vayikra and Parshas Vayikra. Let's take a look inside. V'im kol adas Yisrael yishgu v'nelam dover me'enei hakol v'asu achas mikol mitzvahs Adonai asher lo yisei yasena v'ashemu. If the entire community of Israel makes a mistake and something gets concealed from the eyes of the call of the congregation, and they do one of the mitzvahs Hashem said not to do, He commanded not to do, and they do it and they're guilty, and they become cognizant of the mistake, of the sin, this call should sacrifice par ben bakar lechatos v'viyu ois lifnei Almayim. They bring a bull as a carbon, as a sin offering, and it comes to the Mishkan or to the Beis HaMikdash. And as the Chumash continues what they do with this, it's not like a regular carbon chatas, as I will specify. You may know there's a whole Masechta in Shas dedicated to this particular carbon and similar carbonis, and that is Masechta Hoirius. Hoirius comes from the word Hoira'ah, like Lahoiris, to teach, to guide, because it speaks about a situation where the central spiritual body that governed the life of the Jewish people, known as the Sanhedrin, gave a misguided or erroneous direction, a wrong Hoira'ah, a wrong instruction. That's Masechta Hoirius. There are many opinions about the details of this carbon, even though the facts are more or less clear in Chumash, but you see it's very brief and very cryptic, like most psukim. So Masechta Hoirius, most of the Mishnahs are filled with debates between Tanoim about the details. But I chose here the Rambam in Hilchos Shgagas, because the Rambam, as usual, is the master organizer who gives us the clear definition, description, and summation of this halacha, so we can grasp what we are dealing with. And of course the Rambam takes one of the views, and that's what he embraces la halacha, although in some of the details there are different views. So let's see Rambam Hilchos Shgagas Perek Yud Beis. The Rambam, the laws of Shgagas, the laws of mistakes, 12th chapter. Zok the Rambam. Kol davar shechayovin al shigegosei chatas kvua. Anything that a person, if he would do it by mistake, he would be mechuyev to bring a carbon chatas. Now, how many situations are there like this in Yiddishkeit? 43. 43 possibilities that a person should do something, and he brings a carbon chatas. What are these types of things? It's not just you'd make a mistake. It has to be a particular type of mistake. It's a mitzvah, a sin, that if you would have done it willingly, bezodin, mamish, willingly, knowing it's wrong and you do it, there would be a chiyuv kares. There would be a heavenly death penalty if the person doesn't repent, if the person doesn't do tshuva. If I do it by mistake, I bring a carbon chatas. Classic example would be, I ate on Yom Kippur. I thought it was Erev Yom Kippur. So I didn't just eat on Yom Kippur. I ate on Yom Kippur. I had a gewaldige meal. I made a mistake. I thought it was Tes Tishrei. Or, I forgot you're not allowed to eat on Yom Kippur. Okay. I forgot you're not allowed to eat on Yom Kippur. It happened to people, I know, they came down from upstairs Yom Kippur in the morning and they went to make a coffee and they forgot it's Yom Kippur, they had a coffee and then they come to shul, whoops, wrong day for a coffee. Or shoygig, a person forgets the day, a person forgets the halacha. A person forgets the halacha. So they bring a sin offering. What was a sin offering? Either a female goat or a female sheep. That's called a carbon chatos. That's a regular carbon chatos. What happens with it? The animal is slaughtered. The blood, as always, is sprinkled, is placed on the mizbeach, on the four corners of the mizbeach. Certain parts of the animal, the fat, are burnt on the altar, and the rest is eaten by the kohanim. That's a classic carbon chatos. A Jew would come to Yerushalayim, buy his sheep, female sheep or goat, and offer that carbon chatos. The kohanim would eat the meat, and he would go home forgiven, atoned for this avera b'shoygig, by mistake. It's very hot, no? It's a nish taste? Huh? Okay, fine. Here we're not talking about this situation. That's what the Rambam says. Any item that you would be mechuyev, if you did it b'shoygig, you would be mechuyev a chatos. Chatos kvua means a permanent chatos because it doesn't change with financial. It's not based on your bracket. It's based on any person bringing the same chatos. Im shagagu bezdin hagadol b'hayram. If the mistake was not done by me, the mistake was made by the bezdin hagadol. Bezdin hagadol means the great court, and that's one court. That's the Sanhedrin, that numbers 71 people already appointed by Moshe Rabbeinu in Chumash. He appointed the 70 elders to join him. Together with him it was 71. And in every single generation they ordained 71 people who became the central authority on the Jewish people in terms of how they should live. If there were questions, if there were debates, if there were new situations that came up. This is called Bezdin HaGadol. In contrast to every city having its own smaller Bezdin, Sanhedrin Ktana, which numbered 23, this numbered 71. So the main Supreme Court, the Sanhedrin, made a mistake. They made a misjudgment in halacha. V'hoyru lahatiroi. And they said you're allowed to do it. So let's give an example. There was a debate last year, 2 years ago, a kosher switch, right? Kosher switch. Somebody is going to come up with a patent called kosher cook. You could put it on Shabbos and you cook your food. And the Sanhedrin Gdoila analyzes it and says it's kosher. And then a month later, and everyone does it. Everyone does it. Just like with the kosher switch, there was a huge debate. Some said it's completely fine, and some said no way. It's Asur on Shabbos. Okay, so the question is if it's Asur min HaTorah, if you chayav koris. But if they make a mistake in something, that if you would do it willingly, you would chayav koris. If you would do it by mistake, you would have to bring a korban chatos. And they make this mistake. And they tell everybody you can do it. V'hoyru bezdin lahatir. V'hoyru lahatira. V'shagagu am b'hira yasam. And the nation accepted it at face value, and they all made a mistake. And the nation followed through, relying on their verdict. And then Bezdin finds out that they made an error. So Bezdin has to bring the korban chatos on their mistake. Even though I did it, even though you did it, even though Bezdin didn't do anything, they are responsible to bring the sin offering. Even though they didn't do anything. We don't focus on their actions or lack of actions. We focus on their instructions. Since they are the ones who told us to do it, so therefore, they assume our responsibility because we relied on them. The rest of the nation is exempt even though they did it, because they were all relying completely on the Sanhedrin on Bezdin. What type of offering do they bring when they find out this mistake? If it was about a sin, that you would be mechuyev karetz if you did it b'mezid, and if you would do it b'shayik, you would have to bring a chatos. Maybe kol shevet v'shevet par chatos. Every tribe has to bring one bull. And I should say, in Mishnah there's a machlokes between Reb Meir, Reb Yehuda, Reb Shimon. Reb Meir holds only Bezdin has to bring the korban, one bull, for all of Klal Yisrael. Rabbi Yehuda holds every shevet one bull. Reb Shimon holds Bezdin one bull and every tribe one bull. The Rambam paskins like Rabbi Yehuda. Every shevet one par. But who are they bringing it for? They're bringing it for Bezdin. Every tribe is bringing an atonement for Bezdin. No individuals have to bring atonements. Back to that pasuk. If the entire community is a shoygig, how? Based on Bezdin, in Bishar HaMitzvah Shagagu Mevi'in Shneim Asar Parim Chatayos. They bring 12 bulls, 12 tribes, 12 bulls. V'heinan Yisrafes Mepnei Shadamam Nichnas Lefnim. Their halach is different than a korban chatos. A regular korban chatos, you put the blood on the outer altar and the koyanim eat it. Here, no. You bring the blood into the heichel and you sprinkle it. The pasuk says, "Keneged haparoiches," parallel in the direction of the curtain separating the kodesh hakadoshim from the heichel, and then you place the blood on the four corners of the inner mizbeach, and then you take all the meat that would be eaten by a regular chatos and you have to burn it. Nothing is eaten besides the fat that gets burnt on the outer mizbeach. Every one of these bulls is called the bull that comes as a result of the community's error. Who should be makriv? the kohol should be makriv. Kol, kohol, v'kol. V'chol shevet, v'shevet, korui kohol. Yehuda holds every shevet is called a separate kohol. So when it says the kohol should be makriv, Reb Meir holds who's the kohol? Klal Yisrael. So who brings the carbon? Their representatives, Bezdin. Rabbi Yehuda says every shevet is a separate kohol in Klal Yisrael. It's a very interesting machlokes. If kohol includes the entire Jews as people as one, or every tribe separately. The Rambam paskins every tribe brings one par. L'chatos, this is the par hel and lovashot tzibur. Now, what does this mean practically? Every Jew has to do it. So he says, Bein sha'asu kol Yisrael sheberetz Yisrael al pi bezdin shahir. Whether all Jews living in Eretz Yisrael did it, they followed through. Bein sha'asu rov Yisrael, or most of the Jews, af al pi shein miyut minyan hashvatim. Even though in terms of the numbers of shvatim it's a minority. Let's say only Jews of 4 shvatim did it, but they happen to constitute the majority of Jews living in Eretz Yisrael. Bein sha'asu rov hashvatim af al pi shein miyut kol Yisrael. Or most shvatim did it, but it happens to be that they still constitute the minority of the Jewish people living in Eretz Yisrael. In all these cases, meviyin keminyan kol hashvatim par l'chol shevet. In all this situation, it's called Klal Yisrael sinned, and every shevet brings a bull, even those that didn't sin. Meviyin keminyan kol hashvatim par l'chol shevet sha'af eila shaloi chatu meviyin aidei hachaytim. Even the shvatim that didn't do anything, but those that did, if they're a minority, but they're the majority of Klal Yisrael, or it's a majority of shvatim, they bring for the other shvatim. Afilu asa shevet echad bulvad v'urei v'kol. Even only members of one shevet sin. Say shevet Reuven. One shevet. But it happens to be that there's 1 million Jews in Eretz Yisrael, and there's 501,000 members of Reuven, and they all happen to do it. They bring it. So that's the hadacha. Hurei v'kol they call tzibur mevin shneim asar parim. They all bring 12 bulls, every shevet. Ubavoy the zoner shneim asar parim or shneim asar seir. If the sin that Bezdin told them to do happened to be connected to idolatry, here, in addition to bulls, also goats. And the Rambam summarizes in the next Perek, Hilchos Gagas Perek Yud Gimel. Asur rov anshe Eretz Yisrael al piyah. If most people in Eretz Yisrael follow the direction of Bezdin, af al pi she'elu ha'osim shevet echad, even though it's only one tribe, but it's the majority of Jews. V'chein asur rov hashvatim af al pi she'en miyut hakol. Or most shvatim, even though it's the minority of Jews. Bezdin chayavim va'osin pturin. Bezdin is liable, not the people who did the sin. Ketzat, what does this mean practically? Hayu yosh v'Eretz Yisrael sheish me'es ela ve'echad. Let's say there are 601,000 citizens in Eretz Yisrael. Jews who live in Eretz Yisrael, 601,000. V'hayu ha'osin beiras Bezdin shloish me'es ela ve'echad. Which Jews follow the direction of Bezdin to do this sin? 301,000. And they're all members of the tribe of Yehuda. 301,000 Jews sinned, and they all belong to Shevet Yehuda. Or you have 100,000 Jews who did it, but they belong to 7 shvatim. 7 complete shvatim did it, and it's altogether 100,000. So 7 is the majority of the shvatim. You have 12 shvatim, 7 is the majority. 301,000 may be one shevet, but it's the majority of Jews. Hadei Bezdin chayavin v'chol ha'osim al piyam pturim. Bezdin assumes the liability, and everyone else is exempt. So here's a fascinating phenomenon. If 300,000 Jews did what Bezdin said, if Bezdin made a mistake, they said today is not Yom Kippur, you can eat. It's Tes Tishrei. They made a mistake. And 300,000 Jews ate breakfast that day. And Bezdin says, whoops, we made a mistake. What happens? 300,000 Jews have to bring a carbon chatos. Why? Because they sinned by mistake. But if the Kohol did it, as the Pasuk says, Nelam davar, v'im kol adas Yisrael, kol adas doesn't mean every Jew living. It means rubai kekulai. So 301,000 Jews ate on Yom Kippur, even if it's from one tribe, or the other way. 7 tribes ate on Yom Kippur, even though it's only 50,000 Jews. Now we don't have to bring a carbon chatos. Bezdin assumes responsibility, and what happens? Every shevet, according to the Rambam, brings one bull. Whereas I said, Reb Meir holds only Bezdin brings a bull. Reb Shimon holds every shevet and Bezdin brings a bull. Ve'ein mashgichin al yoshvei chutz la'aretz. You never look at people living outside of the land. She'ein karui kol ala bnei Eretz Yisrael. Only Jews living in Eretz Yisrael are called kahal. Only they are part of the kehillah that makes up Klal Yisrael. There's something about living in the land in Eretz Yisrael. Outside, not. So 300,000 Jews ate on Yom Kippur based on Bezdin's erroneous instructions. And in Chutz La'aretz you have another 500,000 Jews who did it. Together they make up the great majority of the Jewish people. No. It all has to be in Eretz Yisrael. And in Eretz Yisrael there were only 300,000. And there are 601,000 Jews in Eretz Yisrael. So therefore everyone has to bring their own carbon chatas. You don't look at Yoshvei Chutz La'aretz. Yeah, no, he's just giving an example. It could be 10. Whatever the number is, yeah. Say there are 1 million Jews in Eretz Yisrael, so 501,000 Jews followed through. You have this chiyuv. If it's 400,000 Jews who followed through, it's not anymore considered a collective. Klal Yisrael did it, and Bezdin assumes responsibility, even though they followed Bezdin. Okay, it was a mistake, but it doesn't have this dynamic, and therefore it becomes an individual issue of people. Now I want to ask you a question. Did this ever happen? Do you think this ever happened? I mean, you realize that it's not a thing that will happen every single day. It's not something that will happen every day that the Sanhedrin will make such a mistake. Remember what has to happen. The whole Sanhedrin has to make this mistake. 71 people, and these are giants. And not only that, among them you have to have, as the Mishnah says, Mufla Bezdin. You have to have the Rosh Yeshiva, who's the greatest scholar. He has to be there. If he's on vacation, if he's gone, doesn't count. So this is not something that happens easily. That everyone is in it, and they all make a mistake. Not about a small thing, a minhag. Something that doesn't have such significance like chorus, but something that b'mezid would be chorus. Did it ever happen? So there's a Gemara in Masechtes Yoma, Daf Nun Zayin Amud Aleph. The next source, Amar Rabbi Elazar b'Rabbi Yossi, Ani Risiya b'Roimi. I saw the paroiches. I saw the veil in Rome when the Romans destroyed the second Beis Hamikdash. The Avos, the Reb Nosson says that they took various pieces of furniture back to Rome. So Rabbi Elazar says, I saw the paroiches. I saw the curtain between the Kodesh HaKadoshim and the Heichel. V'hoyu aleh kama tipei domim. The paroiches had on it drops of blood. From what? Shal par helim davar shal tzibur. Remember, this bull wasn't like another carbon that you sprinkled on the outside Mizbeach. Here the blood was brought in to the Heichel, which was very unique. It happened to the bull that they offered on Yom Kippur. They did it with the goat that they offered on Yom Kippur. They did it with the par helim davar shal tzibur, with seiri avodah zarah that came from helim davar shal tzibur, and another few karbanos. So he says, I saw the blood of par helim davar shal tzibur on it. The Gemara says, how did he know it was that? Maybe it was Yom Kippur. The Gemara says, because Yom Kippur there would have been an order. Achas lamayla, achas v'achas, achas v'shtayim, achas v'sholosh. Here, he didn't have that system, so he knew it was not Yom Kippur. He knew it was par helim davar shal tzibur and seiri avodah zarah. That's what he says. What were the circumstances? He doesn't say. He just says he saw the paroiches with this blood. Tosfos asks a gewaldige question. Tosfos says this doesn't make sense. Why? Tosfos in Yuma. We have here a major problem. Because in the first Beis Hamikdash there was no paroiches. In the first Beis Hamikdash there was a wall between the Kodesh HaKadoshim and the Heichel. It was called Amma Traxim. It was a wall. The second Beis Hamikdash, they made two curtains because they didn't know exactly where to put the walls. They made two curtains with an Amma in between. But in the second Beis Hamikdash, Tosfos says, there was no par helim davar shal tzibur, because ostensibly Tosfos learns that the only one who could be makriv the par helim davar shal tzibur is a kohen hamashiach. In other words, a Kohen Gadol who was anointed through oil, through the Shemen HaMishcha that Moshe made. But that Shemen HaMishcha was concealed by Yoshiyahu at the end of the first Beis HaMikdash. So in the second Beis HaMikdash, the high priests only wore clothes, Shmoina B'gadim. They used to become appointed as Kohanim Gedolim, not through the oil, but through the B'gadim, the extra 4 garments that they put on. So Tosfos says, you have a problem. He says he saw the Paroiches. So it had to be in Bayis Sheni. But in Bayis Sheni, this whole carbon couldn't be brought, because he didn't have a Kohen HaMashiach. So it had to be Bayis Rishon. But Bayis Rishon, there was no Paroiches. That's his problem. So Tosfos gives 2 answers. The first answer is that it was Bayis Rishon, and it wasn't the Paroiches between the Kodesh HaKadoshim and the Kodesh. That there was a wall, but he says in front of it, there was another Paroiches, there was another veil. That's what he meant. So it works even in Bayis Rishon. And then he says, or it could have been Bayis Sheni, and you don't need a Kohen anointed with Shemen HaMishcha to bring this carbon parallel and Davar Shel Tzibur, which he gets into a whole discussion there. According to the first answer of Tosfos, this happened in Bayis Rishon. According to the second answer, it happened in Bayis Sheni. Do we know the circumstances that Bezdin made a colossal error that involved Klal Yisrael to do a sin that B'mezid would be a Chiyuv Kares? We don't have such a record. Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur, the Gemara says he saw the Paroiches, and it's also a second version in Gemara. The Gemara itself over there, there's different versions what he saw. One version is that he actually saw the Paroiches with the blood of Yom Kippur, and then another version is no, he saw the blood with the Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur. So at least, according to some views, it happened. When, how, what were the circumstances? That always remained a question. Until the Rogatchover Gaon, who says the answer is very clear. When it happened, how it happened, and what happened. And for this, he takes us to another sugya of Gemara, Moyed Katan, Daf Tes Amud Aleph. But in order to appreciate that sugya, we need the history. Shlomo HaMelech finishes building the first Beis HaMikdash, and he completes it in the month of Tishrei. There's a chapter in Tanakh, Melachim Aleph Perek Ches, where the Jewish people gather in the month of Tishrei to Shlomo HaMelech to celebrate the completion of the first Beis HaMikdash and the Chanukas Habayis. And the Pasuk creates and describes the fanfare, the drama, the celebration and the joy of the completion of the first Beis HaMikdash. When in the month of Tishrei did the Chanukas Beis HaMikdash happen? When? Is there a date? So we see in the Pasuk gives us a date. Melachim Aleph Perek Ches. Oz Yakel Shloime Zikne Yisrael is called Rosh Matas Nisi Avis Lebnei Yisrael LaMelech Shloime Yerushalayim Lahalis Esarem Brisa Denei Meir David Hitzion Vayikalu LaMelech Shloime Kol Ish Yisrael B'Yerechei Sonim B'Chag Hu Chodesh Hashvi. All of the Jewish people gathered to Yerushalayim to Shloime. He's going to finally take the Aron out of the city of David, bring it into the new Beis HaMikdash, into the Holy of Holies. When? B'Chag Hu Chodesh Hashvi, during the 7th month. V'Hamelech v'Chol Yisrael imay zoivchim zevach lifnei Hashem. They offer many offerings. Vayizbach shloime zevach hashlam masha zevach l'Hashem bokor esrim u'shnayim elef v'tzoyin me'ev esrim elef v'yachnechu was based on the Nei HaMelech v'Chol Bnei Yisrael. Quite many offerings. Shlomo HaMelech offers to dedicate the new house. Pasuk Samach Hey. Vayaz Shlomo be'esahi es hachog. V'chol Yisrael imay kol gadol milevoicha masad nachal mitzrayim lifnei Adonai Eloheinu shivas yamim v'shivas yamim arba asar yom. Keywords. Shlomo makes the holiday together with all Jews. A huge call. From where? From Hamas, north of Eretz Yisrael. That's the northern border. Ad Nachal Mitzrayim, Egyptian river, which is the southwest border of Eretz Yisrael. The whole call from north to south comes to Shlomo for 7 days, and for 7 days altogether 14 days. 7 and 7 is 14. By Yom Hashmini, on the 8th day, Shilach es ha'am, meaning the second set of 7 days finishes. On the 8th day, he sends away the nation. Vayevorchu es hamelech, they bless the king. Vayom hashmini shilach es ha'am, vayevorchu es hamelech, vayelchu lo aleim smeichim v'tui v'toive leiv. Al kol hatoiva asher asa Adonai leDavid avdi u'Yisrael amay. They returned to their homes full of joy and gladness of heart for the goodness that Hashem has bestowed on David, his servant, and his nation Yisrael. What are these 14 days? The celebration goes for 14 days, clearly. 7 days and 7 days. It also says in the Pasuk that he made the Chag, the Yom Tif. Which Yom Tif? Obviously Sukkot. That's the Yom Tif of 7 days. So there was 7 days plus 7 days in which he was slaughtering every day lots of sacrifices to God. And the Jews were eating and drinking and feasting for a celebration that lasted 14 days. So 7 days of Sukkot. The 8th day he sent them home. By Yom HaShmini he sent them home. He said go home. They all went home. Smeichim v'tuvei, they were all happy. But it didn't begin the 7 days of Sukkot. It began 7 days before Sukkot. 7 and 7. So the Gemara Moed Katan reaches the following fascinating conclusion. Moed Katan Tesamid Aleph. Amar Reb Parnach, Amar Reb Yochanan, Oysa Shana Loi Asu Yisrael Es Yom Kippur. That year, the Jewish people did not observe Yom Kippur. V'hayudoy Yagim v'oimnim, they were worried. Shemen es chayvu senein shel Yisrael kliya. Maybe the Jewish people are deserving of annihilation for violating Yom Kippur. Yotza sabaskel v'amrelem kulchem muzumanin l'chay olam haba. A voice comes out and says, you're all welcome to the future world. No worries. My Dorush asks the Gemara, how did the Jews come up with an idea that you don't observe Yom Kippur? You don't fast on Yom Kippur? From where? From what? In the time of Shlomo HaMelech. Amru kal v'chomer. They made a kal v'chomer. What was their kal v'chomer? Uma, for them this was plain logic. Uma mishkan she'en kedushas kedushas olam. V'kar ben yachid doiche Shabbos. The Isser Skila. Mikdash de kedushas kedushas olam. V'kar ben Tzibur. V'yom Kippurim the Anush Kadosh like Kol Shekeh. They said, let's look what happened when the Jews dedicated the Mishkan. Rish Chodesh Nisan, Moshe Rabbeinu built up the Mishkan. For 12 days, they celebrated the dedication of the Mishkan, and every day, a Nasi, the leader of each tribe, brings his carbon. By Yom Harishan, you have Nachshon ben Aminadav Lamata Yehuda, and so it goes on for 12 days. Does that include Shabbos? Yeah. 12 days must have a Shabbos. On Shabbos, an individual Jew, a carbon yachid, slaughtered and brought an animal as a carbon, which is a violation of Shabbos. How did they do it? How did they do it? The answer is, God told Moshe, Nasi echad layom, Nasi echad layom. Hashem said, I want them, each one, to bring their carbon on that day, not all in one day. So now they made a kal v'chomer. So for the Chanukas HaMishkan, the Mishkan was only a temporary holiness. It went with them for 40 years, but then it was gone. The place of the Mishkan does not become holy eternally. The moment you move the Mishkan, the place is not holy anymore. And the whole institution of the Mishkan is temporary. And an individual being makriv a carbon for the dedication of the Mishkan allows you to violate Shabbos, which is an Isser Skila. To do a malach on Shabbos is a death penalty by the court. Yom Kippur is not a death penalty by the court. If somebody eats on Yom Kippur, or malach on Yom Kippur, it's an Isser Karis. It's a heavenly penalty, which is always more lenient because you could do tshuva. You could repent. It's much lighter, it's not immediate, it takes many years. You can't compare Karis to Skila. And here it's not a carbon yachid. It's not for an individual, one nasi of a tribe. Shlomo HaMelech was offering, together with the whole Klal Yisrael, the whole community was bringing a carbon. Of course, you can violate Yom Kippur. So therefore they ate Yom Kippur, they drank Yom Kippur, they slaughtered the animals on Yom Kippur. Why did they do it all? Because they made a kal v'chomer. Madach. The Mishkan over there, it's much more chamor. Number one, it's only the Mishkan. It's not like a Beis HaMikdash. Beis HaMikdash is eternal holiness. This place will never become unholy. The holiness in the Makam HaMikdash is eternal, forever. So Kedushas Olam, even when the building is not there, it's holy. So it's much more chamor to violate Shabbos for the Mishkan. Nonetheless, they did it. So Madach Mishkan, they did it for a Yachid, for the Mishkan. And Shabbos, 3 things. It was only the Mishkan, it was a Yachid, and it was Shabbos. Here, It's Yom Kippur, it's for the Tzibur, and it's for the Beis HaMikdash. For sure you're allowed to violate Yom Kippur. And the Gemara says that's how they came to the conclusion that you're allowed to eat and drink that Yom Kippur, in honor of the Beis HaMikdash being completed. Continues the Gemara, next side. So why do you say they were worried? So why were they worried and they had to have a baskel? They were right. Not so simple. By the Mishkan, what did they do with the karbanos? It was all for Hashem. Here, the pasuk says they were feasting, they were eating, they were drinking. It was for themselves. They offered it to Hashem, but it was then they ate it. You can't compare. You're allowed to violate Yom Kippur for that. Frag the Gemara, hachanami here too. Mavid levdu, they should have brought the karbanos, and not eat and drink. They could have done it just like by the Mishkan. Bring all the karbanos on Yom Kippur and don't eat. Zog the Gemara, no, that's not an option. Ein simcha b'lo yachil ursi. That's not happy. Nobody's going to be happy. They're going to be miserable. The Mishkan, they did it. That's not called simcha. That's not called celebrating the Beis HaMikdash's completion. There has to be simcha. For there to be simcha, you got to eat and drink. So therefore, that wasn't an option. So if it wasn't an option, so therefore they had to eat and drink. That's why they had so much doubt, because maybe the Kal V'Chaimer from the Mishkan doesn't work, because this is Tzorech Hedyet. And the Gemara leaves it by this. That's why they had doubt. A few lines later, the Gemara says, Yatzis Abaskel v'Amrelem Kulchem U'Zamanan L'Chaya Elam Haba Minolam Da'achilahu. How do we know that they were forgiven? How do we know? We say there's a baskel. How do you know that they were forgiven? They heard a voice that it's all good. How do we know? The Tani Tachlifa. Tachlifa says, look at the pasuk. Vayoyim Hashmini Shilach Hasam Vayavarchu Es HaMelech Vayelchu L'Aleim Smeichim V'Tuvei Leiv Al Kol HaTov Asher Asa Hashem L'David Avdei L'Yisrael Amai. What are all these words? A lot of adjectives. He says, Holchu L'Aleim Shaholchu Matzu Nesheim B'Tara. They went back to their tents. Obviously they went back to their tents. Where should they go? To a bowling alley? Where should they go? To pizza shops? Of course they went back. L'Aleim means that they found their tents complete, meaning that all of their spouses were in the most perfect, pure state, so they could continue to build their families. Smeichim, what does it mean? They were happy. Shenenu miziv hashchina. They enjoyed the radiance of the divine presence. Tuvei leiv, shekol echad ve'echad nisabri ishtei beben zachar. They came home and they were ready for relationships. As it says, the nashim were all betara, they were all pure. Everybody's wife became pregnant with a child, a son. Al kol ha'toiva, on all the good. What's all the good? Sheyatzes abaskel v'amrelem kulchem u'zaman l'chaya elam. When it says they went home happy, with gladness of heart. Home means one thing, happy means something else. Gladness of heart means something else. Al kol ha'toiva, on all the benefit, we know what happened. What's the toiva? The toiva is that they were forgiven. A baskel came out and said, U'zaman l'chaya elam. What's LeDavid Avdi L'Yisrael Amay? Bishlema L'Yisrael Amay, the Achilu of Yom Kippur. We know the goodness that came to the Jews. He forgave them the sin of eating on Yom Kippur. What did he do, LeDavid Aviv? LeDavid Avdai? So the Gemara tells a whole story there, that the Aron would not go in, the gates were closed, and Shlomo invoked the memory and the righteousness of David, his father, and that's when Su'u Sharim Rashechem, the goats opened up, and all of the enemies of David, who believed that he was a great sinner, realized that David was a great tzaddik. So this is the benefit to David. This is the end of the sugya. Now I want to ask you a question. When you learn this sugya, what's the impression you get? Did the Jews do the good thing? Did they do the right thing or the wrong thing? Was eating and drinking on Yom Kippur the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do? The moment the Gemara introduces the story right away, it says they ate, they were worried, and a baskel said, don't worry, so generally when you read this sugya, most mefarshim, the Jews made a cheshbon, they did a right thing, they were worried, Hashem said, don't worry, there's nothing to worry about. But when you think about it, and you look into it, there's an issue here. The Gemara says, how did they know you're allowed to eat on Yom Kippur? So the Gemara says they made a Kal V'Chaimer from the Mishkan. The Gemara refutes the Kal V'Chaimer. Because there was tzarech gavaya, here was tzarech hedyet. So the Gemara says they shouldn't have eaten, but they had to eat for simcha. But then the kal v'chomer is not a kal v'chomer. So at the end, the Gemara does not defend the kal v'chomer. The Gemara basically refutes the kal v'chomer and doesn't give a counter argument to validate the kal v'chomer. That's number one. Number two, the end of the Gemara, it says, what were they so happy about? I quote again the words of the Gemara. Bishleima Yisrael amay da achilu oven yom hakippurim. Or the Gemara earlier, minalon da achilu. How do you know they were forgiven? What do you mean? You forgive people for a sin or for what they think is a sin? If you think you did something wrong but you didn't do anything wrong, I don't have to forgive you. Mechila means, right, when we ask for mechila, for a mistake, for a sin, for something wrong. The Gemara says, minalon da achilu. How do you know they were forgiven? They were forgiven or they never did a wrong thing? The Nesiim had to do tshuva for being makriv a carbon in the Mishkan? No, of course not. That's what Hashem wanted. So if Hashem wanted them to eat on Yom Kippur, there was no sin. But the Gemara says there was a sin and they were forgiven for the sin. That's very interesting. Now I ask you another question. When did they hear the Baskel? That Mizumanim l'chaya olam haba. When should have they heard the Baskel? L'chayra, right after Yom Kippur. After it happened, they should have heard the Baskel. Don't worry about it. When does it sound like they heard the Baskel? Bayoim Hashmini. When is Bayoim Hashmini? That's Shmini Atzeres. Let's understand the Bayoim Hashmini here. You have 7 days of celebration. You have 7 days of Sukkot. 7 and 7. So the first 7 days of celebration were before Sukkot. The next 7 days of celebration were on Sukkot. By Yom HaShmini, the 8th day, all the Mefarshim say is Shmini Atzeres, the 8th day. That's why it's called the 8th day. Why is it the 8th day? This is before there was the 8th day. Why is Bayom HaShmini called, I think it's before. Why is Bayom HaShmini called the 8th day? Which 8th day? On one level, it means the 8th day after 7 days of celebration. But really, there were 14 days of celebration. So Bayom HaShmini also means Shmini Atzeres. Because you have 7 days of Sukkot, Tesvav, Tezayin, Yudzayin, Yudches, Yutes, Chav Aleph. Then you have Chav Beis, Tishrei, is the 8th day, Bayom HaShmini Atzeres Tiyah Lachem. On that day, Shlomo Melech said, guys, the fun is over, it's time to go home. Shilach HaMelech Esa'om. Okay, the Mefarshim struggle. How did they go home on Yom Tov? Tchum Yom Tov. You're not allowed to walk outside of the city more than 2,000 amas. How did they go home on Yom Tov? And in Divrei Hayomim it actually says that he sent them home on the 9th day, on the 23rd of Tishrei. So there's different interpretations. One is he sent home those who lived close, and tomorrow he sent home those who lived further. They went home on Simchas Torah, what we call Simchas Torah. There was no Simchas Torah then. They already had Simchas Torah 14 days. Another interpretation is, Rashi brings, he gave them permission to go home on Shmini Atzeres. They actually went home the next morning, but he gave them permission. So they go home, they're all happy. Why are they happy? They come home, their wives are waiting for them, Betara. Their wives weren't complaining, their wives were happy, they went, shine. They all had children a year later. They went home because they had simcha, because they were nenu meziv hashchina, and it says they were also happy because of the baskel. You could say the baskel happened a long time ago. The baskel happened almost 40 after Yom Kippur, or literally it sounds like it happened now. The baskel happened mizumanan l'chaya olam haba. So b'doichik you could say it happened earlier, but l'chayra it sounds like it happened at the end. Why did it wait for so long? So how do we understand this Gemara? Was it a mistake? Was it not a mistake? Was it a sin? Was it not a sin? Did they make a right judgment? Did they make a wrong judgment? Al pi pshat, most learn that it was a good thing. Shlomo HaMelech decided this was the right thing to do, and Hashem confirmed their decision. Comes the Rakachava and says, wait, let me show you one Gemara, and everything will be put in a different context. Hoyri is Daf Gimel Amar Aleph. Amar Rabasi. Ubahira Haloich Acharoiv Yoshvei Eretz Yisrael. We already learned this in Rambam. When it comes to the instruction of Bezdin, who do you follow? The majority of Jews living in Eretz Yisrael. That's who we look at. We don't look at the Jews living in Chutz La'aretz. So we ask, how many Jews followed Bezdin? Look at the Jews in Eretz Yisrael. If it's a majority, you bring the Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur. If it's a minority, you don't. Shenemar. How do you know that all Jews in Chutz La'aretz are excluded? How do you know? The Rambam says Kohol is Eretz Yisrael. Outside of Eretz Yisrael, we're not called a Kehillah. We're called a community. Not a Kohol. Kohol is in Eretz Yisrael. How do you know? Shenemar. The Gemara proves the halacha of Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur, that it includes only citizens of Eretz Yisrael from this pasuk. Shenemar. Vayas Shloime be'esahi esachag v'chol Yisrael amoy. Kohol Gadol. Milavoy Chamos ad Nachal Mitzrayim lifnei Hashem Elokeinu Shivas Yomim Arba Asar Yom. Frag the Gemara Michte. Ksiv v'chol Yisrael Amay Kohol Gadol. It says that Shloime summoned the entire Jewish nation, a huge community. Milavoy Chamos ad Nachal Mitzrayim Lamali. Why is it important for me to know from which borders he got these Jews? L'maynaf Gemina in this pasuk. If we're talking about the borders of Eretz Yisrael, it's very important. You have to know where Eretz Yisrael begins and ends. But we're talking about who came to Shlomo HaMelech. Where did they come from? And let's say they chartered a plane from Uman to Shlomo HaMelech. And let's say they chartered a plane from Kennedy Airport to Shlomo HaMelech. It says, Kohol Gadol, Kol Yisrael Amei. No, I have to tell you from where. From the north to the south. Lamali, Lamaynaf Kamin. Shma Mina Hani hu de ikri kol aval hanach lo ikri kol. The only Jews who could be called kol gadol are the Jews who came from within the borders of the Holy Land, meaning from Hamas in the north to Nachal Mitzrayim southwest. Those who came from those borders to Yerushalayim, that's the kol gadol. Those who came from outside those borders, they may have come, but they're not part of the Kohol Gadol. So from here we learn that whenever there's an issue of Bezdin giving an erroneous psak din, and what does the Torah say in Vayikra in that pasuk? The Torah says, "V'nelam davar me'einei hakol v'noida achatas asher chatu alav v'ikrivu hakol." The kol made a mistake, and the kol is responsible. Who's this kol? Who's the skull that made a mistake? Only Jews in Eretz Yisrael. You could have 2 million Jews in Chutz La'aretz who made the same mistake and they're the majority? Doesn't count. The call is the call of Eretz Yisrael. How do you know this? Look by Shlomo HaMelech. This pasuk, this is the source. It says Shlomo brought in the Jews, the whole Jewish people, the call God, and then you give me the borders of Eretz Yisrael, only that's call. That's the source. How does everybody learn this Gemara? Pashtus. The story of Shlomo has nothing to do with Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur, of course not. The story of Shlomo just tells me the definition of Kohol. The Torah says by Shlomo that he brought in. Who came to Shlomo? So it says, Vayikalu ala melech Shlomo, who came? Vayash Shlomo b'eisei chag v'chol Yisrael imay Kohol Gadol. Who's Kohol Gadol? The Jews from Eretz Yisrael. It's a Gilui Milsa of the definition of the word Kohol. That's it. That's why he gives me the geographical region from where these Jews came. But if this is the case, we have a major problem. And the problem is, you found a pasuk in Melachim Aleph Perek Ches where Jews of Eretz Yisrael are called Kohol. How many psukim are there in Tanakh that any Jew living anywhere is called Kohol? And this is a question of already the Yireim. He asks a question. He says, I have a question. It says, Lo yovoi mamzer b'kahal Hashem. You know what you should say? A mamzer can't marry a regular Jewish girl in Eretz Yisrael. A Jewish girl living in Muncie? Pajalista? You're not part of the call. Lo yovoi amoini umayovi b'kahal Hashem. An Ammonite and Moabite can't marry a Jewish girl. Okay, it's only a male, not a female. But only in Eretz Yisrael. Only in Eretz Yisrael. It wouldn't help the situation with Rus and Boyas, because they got married in Eretz Yisrael. But outside of Eretz Yisrael, it's not an issue. It says by a Mitzri, you have to wait for the third generation, right? Dor Shlishi Yovelam B'Kal Hashem. Same thing, only in Eretz Yisrael. No one ever thought of this. The issue of a mamzer is only in Eretz Yisrael, because it says Kahal. It says Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol, V'chiper ba'adoi, uva'ad beisoi, uva'ad kol Kahal Yisrael. A Jew not living in Eretz Yisrael is not atoned on Yom Kippur? He's not atoned? He's not Kahal Yisrael? Atonement for Yom Kippur is only Jews in Eretz Yisrael? It says, Lo yavoy psua dako chrus shavcha b'kahal Hashem. No, only Eretz Yisrael. So we found a pasuk that says it. We found a pasuk. But it's difficult to understand because there's other places. Kol is Eretz Yisrael. So now it says in Vayikra that it has to be the kol. V'nelam dova meni kol. Why do I compare to that kol, not to this kol? So there's a Sefer Tzafnas Paneach and Hoirius, Rakachava and Hoirius, and he has 5 words, and he says because everyone misunderstands this Gemara. The Gemara is not bringing a raya from Shloim as a Gilui Milsa what kol means. The Gemara is bringing a proof from the story of Shloim because that was the story. Take a look, Tzafnas Paneach Hoirius. Shma minahani hu de ikr kol. From the pasuk of Shlomo, you learn that only the Jews in Eretz Yisrael are called kol. Va'oz have hiras bezdin shedachu yom kippurim. This is the story. The Sanhedrin made a psak, and it was an erroneous psak. They said that the will of Hashem is no eating and drinking on Yom Kippur. Is this something that if you would do b'mezid you would be chayav kares? Yes. Is it something that if you would do b'shoigig would you be chayav achatos? Yes. K'moy de mevur mayit kotten daf tes ein sham bazeh. If you learn through the sugya mayit kotten, you'll understand that this was a sin because the kal v'chomer was rejected. It wasn't a good kal v'chomer. The Gemara has no defense for the Kal V'chomer. The Gemara just explains why they made the calculation. They may have had a defense, but the Gemara doesn't have a defense. In other words, in conclusion, we don't have a defense for it. We invalidate it. That's why they're doyagim, they're stressed. And that's why it says, Achilu oisayavin. It was a sin that had to be forgiven. It was a mistake, but it was a sin. They ate on Yom Kippur. If so, we understand why the Gemara learns it out from this pasuk. That the only community you count for Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur is Jews in Eretz Yisrael. The word kol sometimes applies to Jews outside of Eretz Yisrael. You have to know the context. Sometimes we say kol is only Eretz Yisrael, sometimes not. The Rambam here gives a definition that kol is only Eretz Yisrael. But how do you learn it out in this case? You learn it out from Shloimeh. Because what does it say by Shloimeh? Shloimeh brought all the Jews together. Kol Gadol. And these words are important. Kol Gadol. Because this is the kol that's going to make the mistake based on the direction of Bezdin. And this is the kol that is responsible to atone for this mistake. So who's this kol? The pasuk says, Milavoi Chamas at Nachal Mitzrayim. Why is that relevant? Because if there would have been Jews in Chutz La'aretz who would have eaten that Yom Kippur, and they would have constituted the majority, and we would have a majority only together with them, we wouldn't have a majority only from Eretz Yisrael, it wouldn't work. You wouldn't have to have a Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur. If this is the case, he says we understand that Peladik Teres Koyanim. You probably know Teres Koyanim is the main oral medrash of the Tanoim on Sefer Vayikra. Most halachas of Sefer Vayikra of Torah Sheba'al Peh are in Teres Koyanim of Vayikra. It has one of the greatest it's one of the greatest sources of authority, like Mishnayos. Zok the Teres Koyanim. The next source, Parshas Acharei Mois. It has to be Parshas Acharei Mois, Perik Tazayin. The pasuk speaks about Yom Kippur. Listen to this. V'hoisa lachem l'chukas oilam. The laws of Yom Kippur should be an eternal statute, an eternal edict. B'chodesh hashvi ba'asel ha'chodesh ta'anu es nafshei seichem v'chol malacha lo yisasu ha'ezrach v'ager agar b'seichech. On the 7th month, on the 10th day, you should afflict your soul. In other words, you shouldn't eat and you shouldn't drink and you shouldn't do any malacha. This is a chukas oilam. What's pshat chukas oilam? Don't think that's only a mitzvah now in the desert. It's a mitzvah forever. Yom Kippur every year, ta'anu es nafshei seichem. Granted, comes the Torah's Koyanim and says lechukas oilam, lebeis oilamim. This is a chukas oilam in the beis oilamim, in the eternal home, meaning in the Beis Hamikdash. 1 second. Why is the Torah's Koyanim limiting it? It's also lebeis oilamim. Before they built the Beis Hamikdash, for 369 years there was a Mishkan in Shiloh. There was a Mishkan in Gilgal. There was a Mishkan in Noiv. There was a Mishkan in Givoin. There was a Mishkan in Shiloh. Then they built the Beis Hamikdash. Then you didn't have to fast Yom Kippur. After the Churban Beis Hamikdash, you don't have to fast Yom Kippur. You're telling me Chukas Olam Ta'anu Es Nafshei Seich. So again, Balabatish, you learn it's not referring to this fasting. It's referring to everything earlier in the parsha. All the karbanas that you're doing here in the Mishkan, you should also do Yom Kippur in the Beis Hamikdash. Again, you have to understand why the Mishkan is excluded. Mishkan Shiloh. Why only Beis Olamim? But no. The Rakatshava says, no, that's not Pshat in the Torah's Koyanim. Pshat in the Torah's Koyanim is Lechukas Olam LeBeis Olamim. You know what Beis Olamim means? When they dedicate the Beis Olamim. When they make the Chanukas Beis Olamim, don't think you're allowed to eat. Ta'anu es nafshei seichem, lechukas oilam. I'm not telling you only today. Lebeis oilamim, for the Beis Hamikdash. You have to fast before and after. He's talking about one incident. The Chazal are learning out from here, chukas oilam, that even when they make Chanukas habayis of the Beis Olamim, they weren't supposed to eat. In other words, it was a mistake of the Sanhedrin who made an erroneous interpretation. If this is the case, he says, you have clear an answer to what people struggle in a Gemara. The Gemara says in Yuma Daf Pei Aleph Amud Aleph, the next source, Lo yoymar oynish b'melacha de gomar me'inui. The pasuk says if you work on Yom Kippur, there's a punishment of kares. If a person does melacha on Yom Kippur, like on Shabbos, Shabbos is skilla, Yom Kippur is kares. So the Gemara says you didn't really have to say it. You know why? You could learn it out from affliction. If you eat on Yom Kippur, is a punishment of kares. That's enough. Ma inui she'enui noyeg b'shabbos v'yom tiv anush kares melacha she'noyeges b'shabbos v'yomim tovim lekol shekeh. You could make a simple kal v'chaymer. Ma'adach when it comes to eating and drinking on Yom Kippur, which doesn't apply to Shabbos. Shabbos you're supposed to eat. Yom Tiv you're supposed to eat. You're allowed to eat. Nonetheless, on Yom Kippur, if you eat, you get kares melacha, which is forbidden on Shabbos and Yom Tiv. Of course you would get kares on Yom Kippur. So if the Torah would just say, if you eat on Yom Kippur, you get kares, that should suffice to learn out that if you do malacha on Yom Kippur, you get kares. It's a kal v'chaymer. Ma'adach, eating, which is a much more lenient thing. Why? Even Shabbos you're allowed to eat. On Yom Kippur, you get kares. So malacha on Yom Kippur, which malacha is much more serious. Why? Because even Shabbos, when you're allowed to eat, it's forbidden. For sure it's forbidden on Yom Kippur and you get kares. So the Gemara says, l'cha'ayra, the Torah didn't have to give an explicit pasuk that gives you a punishment for working on Yom Kippur. And the Gemara refutes it. Ikala mifrach, this kal v'chaymer is not true. You know why? Listen to this. Ma li'inu shaloi hutar miklaloi, toimar b'malacha shehutra miklala. You can't compare. You know why? Because really, melacha is not more stringent than eating on Yom Kippur. Because affliction on Yom Kippur, loy hutar miklaloi, it never ever got a heter. It was never became mutter. It was never taken out of the klal of Isur. Affliction on Yom Kippur was always a constant. Melacha is mutter on Yom Kippur. When? The karbonis that you do on Yom Kippur, you shecht an animal, is a malacha. You're not allowed to shecht on Shabbos and Yom Kippur. So from malacha we see that it was taken out of the Isur. Inui always remained forbidden. So therefore, you can make a kal v'chaymer and say, Madach, Inui gets kares for shor malacha. Because Inui has a stringency, even though Shabbos you're allowed to eat. But on Yom Kippur it's more stringent because you see loy hutar miklalai. 1 second. Inui loy hutar miklalai? What do you mean Inui loy hutar miklalai? Feidish, yeah. When was it hutar miklalai? By Shlomo HaMelech. It was Hutar Mikloloi. They made a Kal V'chomer, the Sanhedrin. They allowed to eat and drink on Yom Kippur. It was Hutar Mikloloi. When they Hutar Mikloloi, it was Hutar Mikloloi. So you might tell me, give me a break. Something that happens once in history, you can't compare it to Malacha. Every Yom Kippur, you shecht animals. I mean, you can't compare. But let's think about this. That's not a chisaron in the Hutar Mikloloi. That's a chisaron in the circumstances. Let's say you would have to make a Chanukas Beis HaMikdash every Yom Kippur. Let's say. According to their cheshbon, would you be allowed to eat? Yeah. It's not pshat loy Hutar Mikloloi. It's felt in the Hutar Mikloloi. It's felt nicht in the Hutar Mikloloi. It's felt in the nesivos, in the umständen. You pasha don't have the circumstances. But meila Hutar Mikloloi. But be'etzem, it's Hutar Mikloloi. It's not a bis inuyus. No. Off limits. You always fast on Yom Kippur. No, depends. Depends. Why does the Gemara say inui loy Hutar Mikloloi? What's the pshat? Sagt the Rakashava, you know why? Because there was no heter. Because there was no heter to eat by Shlomo. Inui loy Hutar Mikloloi. I Bezdin said it. They said it. It was a mistake. This was the classic mistake of the Sanhedrin. If this is true, take a look in the Zmiris. Anybody here says all the Zmiris Matzai Shabbos? At least your Baba used to say it. Hamavdil ben kodesh lechoil. Take a look. Nachnu biyadcha kachoymer, slachna al kal v'choymer, yoim liyoim labiya oymer, v'layla l'layla. Slachna al kal v'choymer. I ask you forgiveness for the kal v'choymer. What forgiveness are you asking for kal v'choymer? So most commentators learn it's a poem. Kal v'choymer means I'm asking forgiveness for kalos and chamuros. In other words, for light mitzvahs that I transgressed and for heavy mitzvahs that I transgressed. But now we understand, no, slach no kal v'choymer. Literally, they made a kal v'choymer. Kal v'choymer is one of the Yud Gimel Midas Shah Torah and the Dreshus Behem. It's a legitimate way of interpreting Torah. We have a lot of halachas that we learn out of a kal v'choymer. That's the job of the Sanhedrin. That's exactly what they were appointed for. To take the mechanism, the formula, the methodology that Moshe Rabbeinu gave them and apply it to new circumstances or new questions or new dilemmas or new situations. That's the process of halacha, with a very powerful immune system known as the Yud Gimel Midas. That's in terms of how to interpret and in terms of who can interpret. Members of Sanhedrin, etc. Smichesh, Mepiyishad, Moshe Rabbeinu with all the criteria. But there was one kal v'chomer that they made, and they felt it was a right kal v'chomer. It turned out to be a mistake. When the Gemara rejects the kal v'chomer, it was their own rejection, and they had no defense. And at the end they said, we made a mistake. And therefore the sin had to be forgiven. So now we come to the final question. When Bezdin figures out they made a mistake, and they look and they see who followed our mistake, Kol Kahal Yisrael. Was it the majority of the Jewish people? It was the majority of the Jewish people. It was the majority of the Shvatim. It was Kol Adas Yisrael Yishgu. Everybody ate and drank on Yom Kippur. No, here you have the halacha. You got to bring a par helim dover shel tzibur. You have to bring a bull. Reb Meir would say Bezdin has to bring the bull. Reb Yehuda would say every shevet has to bring one bull, 12 bulls. Reb Shimon says you have to bring 13 bulls. Bezdin needs to bring a bull, plus every shevet needs to bring a bull. Now the question is, when did they bring the Tar Helen Dover Shel Tzibur? When did they bring it? When did they bring this bull? When did Bezdin bring it? Tain is the Rogachover. To bring a par helim davar shel tzibur, you understand, it's not a little maisela. You brought a carbon. This is the tshuva of Klal Yisrael. By definition, when you brought a chatos, your own chatos, as the Gemara says, there has to be shav midiyasai. There has to be an element of remorse, of tshuva, of humility. Leiv nishbar v'nitke lekim leisivza. You know, they once asked the Apterov. They asked the Apterov, how is it a Jew is mechalel Shabbos? A Jew ate on Yom Kippur. He goes, he buys a sheep. He brings it to the Beis HaMikdash. He gives it to the Kohanim and Shoin, it's all over. It doesn't seem like you did such a serious thing. You forgot it was Shabbos. It was Taka you forgot. But we know Rashi says Shoygig tzarech kapara. Shoygig needs a kapara. Why? Because, as we say today, it may not come from the conscious, it comes from the unconscious, it comes from the subconscious. Shoygig is not stam a shoygig. It's a shoygig. Certain people don't do shoygigs. There's something in you that's off. So he brings it and that's it. So the Abter Rav used to say, he would sometimes he would say things that he remembered. He said that he was a Gilgul from the time of the Beis HaMikdash and even the Deir HaMidbar. So he said certain things that he remembered. So the Abter Rav says, I'll tell you a mice about a Yid that I remember. His name was Reb Groinem. That's what he said. His name was Reb Groinem. Reb Groinem was Mechalo Shabbos by mistake. But Reb Groinem wasn't Stam a Psayid. Reb Groinem was a Choshev Yid. But not Stam a Choshev Yid. He was like from the Balabatim, who finished Daf Yomi 9 times. They waited for him at the end of Shemona Esrei. He sat in Mizrach. At Gehesin Reb Groinem. The Abter Rav said, Reb Groinem. Mechalo Shabbos by mistake. Okay, so what do? You take off 6 hours from work. You go to your Shalayim. You buy a sheep. You deliver it to the Beis HaMikdash. Fafal and Shalom HaYisrael. So he says, Reb Groinem, come to your Shalayim. He goes to a store. You have to go to a store. The Yid says, Reb Groinem, Shalom Aleichem. Everybody, who doesn't know Reb Groinem? Reb Groinem is the man, he always sits at the head table by the dinners, by the Shalom Zachas, by the Brissen, by the Bar Mitzvah. So he gets Eidei Kiddush. So, that was for the literature. So Reb Groinem, Chassidim don't know what I'm talking about. They want bracha achrita. Okay, fine. One day you'll find out. Because the Edom have to do tshuva officially. They have to be tzaddikim. Bracha achrita is nicht so great. Okay, so Reb Groinem comes. He goes shopping. Reb Groinem is da. What do you need? He says, I came to bring a carbon. An oila, a neder, and a doven. What should I give you? An oila is a sacha. He says, no. I need a female sheep. Ay. Chilul Shabbos. It's shine bushes. That shine bushes. Okay. He takes out the goat. Now he has to get to the Harabayas. So now you're dealing with Yerushalayim kids. You ever dealt with Yerushalayim kids? Where's the Harabayas? They tell you the wrong way. So you go the wrong way. In the meantime, the sheep runs away. The goat especially runs away, especially if it knows you want to kill it. So now the Groinem is chasing goats. And then finally gets it. Where's the Rabbi? They tell him the wrong way. He goes different way. He's already in the whole Yerushalayim. He's running. He's schwitzing. The talis cotton is out from all directions. He's not tucked in anymore. The poor guy doesn't know what hit him, and his children are laughing. Already within a few hours, the whole Yerushalayim knows that the Groinem was Mechal Shabbos. The Abter Rav says finally he makes it to the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, the Kohanim and the Chenish Yerushalayim, and the Kohanim are Choshev Yidden, but they right away know Reb Groinem. They see the carbon, they understand the matzav, they offer the carbon, they put the blood on the mizbeach, they bring the meat on the mizbeach, the fat on the mizbeach. The Seder was, Chazal say that there was a fire that would come down from heaven, and it was crouched like a lion, revutza kari. But that's all if the person felt regret in their heart. If not, the fire looked like a kelev, it looked like a dog. And suddenly Reb Groinem sees the fire comes down and it looks like a dog. Ay. The core of his soul, he's humbled. Until it becomes like a lion, when he's really humbled. Now he goes home. So the Abter Rav says you should understand, it wasn't such a simple process. You went to your Yerushalayim for a few hours, you bought a sheep, you were makrivet. So the question is, when are they making the Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur? To mix it into the Chanukah's Beis HaMikdash, you're destroying your simcha. And here we have a yisoid, an unbelievable yisoid. Most people, they make a mistake, they sin. What do they do right away? They go into a depression. It's all over. Shlomo Melech said, no, we made a mistake, but there's a Chanukah's Beis HaMikdash. 14 days. We're celebrating the Beis HaMikdash. That didn't change. When are we going to bring the carbon? At the end. So the Rogatchover says, when did they bring the Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur? They brought the Par Davar Helam Tzibur on Hoshana Raba. So Hoshana Raba became what? The one day of Kapara for Klal Yisrael. One time in history that Klal Yisrael was atoned. So when did the Baskel come out? At the end of Hoshana Raba. That's when, of course, the Baskel didn't come out in the beginning. There was no Baskel in the beginning. They made an Aveda. It was the Baskel. They brought the Par Helen Dover Shel Tzibah on Hoshana Raba. Kulchem Zumanin L'chaya Olam Haba. Achilu Oisei Avoin. The sin was forgiven. So Hoshana Raba became enshrined as Yom Kippur, as the ultimate day of atonement, because the whole Jewish people was atoned for Yom Kippur. Somebody else would have said, we ate on Yom Kippur. There's no sukkahs. You go into a depression. That's how people are. You made a sin, what do? You look in the mirror, you say, I'm a shmata, I'm worthless. How do you think Shlomo felt about himself? It happened under his watch, under his rule. How did the Sanhedrin feel then? What Chanukah's Beis HaMikdash? What, are you going to celebrate a Beis HaMikdash? V'shachanti b'seichem, you ate on Yom Kippur. I ate on Yom Kippur, I have to forgive. I need forgiveness, I have to fix. But you have to celebrate the Beis HaMikdash. I made a mistake, I'm human. For this, there's also a din. Torah was written for humans. Fadem is echt halacha. The whole Klal Yisrael sins. God doesn't say it means you're a failure. There's a halacha. What you do? Par Helen Davar Shel Tzibur. You don't cancel out life. Somebody came to me once. They did something, a terrible mistake, and therefore they're just depressed. They can't eat, they can't drink, they can't daven, they can't learn, they can't nothing. So I said, Mashal Amad Avadoima. I was once going on the highway. It happened more than once, and I felt that the wheels are not so the way they should be. So I pulled over, I take a look, and I see a nice big flat tire on one of the wheels, but mama's down. The car schleppt sich. So I want to ask you, what do you think should have been my cheshbon? Should my cheshbon be, you know what? One tire is gone. That means this is a horrible, worthless situation. What do? I pop the other 3 tires. Just to make everything equal. One tire is dead. Kill the other 3. Call the Chaver Kadisha. What are you wasting time for? It's a Befedish Pasuk. We say it every morning. Al tiftechu b'nediv v'en adam shein leis Yeshua, and then you talk about the tires. Teitzei ruchay. Yoshev lad masoi. V'yoyim ahu avdu eshternaisav. You call Uber. You pop the other 3 tires. Most people don't do that. What do? They do what good people do, what good Jews do. Before we would hire other people. You take out the jack, you get down on your knees, and you fix the tire. And you go weiter. You don't pop all the tires. You have a flat tire, there's no question. It has to be fixed. So you destroy the car, you destroy the tires. You have to bring a Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur. Now we're celebrating V'shachanti b'soicham. God is dwelling among us. We made a mistake, MS, a bad mistake. You finish the days of celebration, you bring your Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur. So at the end of the 7 days, Hoshana Raba, that's when they brought the Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur. That's why it becomes a Yom Kippur. Everything is answered, the whole sugya. The Gemara in Hoydiyas, the Teres Koyanim, the Gemara in Tainis, Beis Olamim. It was taka mistake, and this was the Par Helam Davar. And if we embrace the first answer of Tosfos in Yumin Nun Zayin, maybe that was the Paroiches. Maybe that was the Paroiches that Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi saw. Tosfos says it was from Bayis Rishon. It could be it was Shlomo Melech's Paroiches. That was the blood. If nobody removed it from the Paroiches, this could be the Rakachova doesn't say this. Now I have to say, Reb Shlomo Yosef Zevin was a Gaon Olam, the editor of Encyclopedia Talmudis, the author of Hamoyadim B'Halacha, L'Oira Halacha, many Sfarim. He was a Gaon, a big Gaon. He was in Yerushalayim in the last years. For many years he passed away, Tov Shalom Ches, 1978, in Adar. He has a Sefer Hamoyadim B'Halacha. Everybody knows, most authors today emulate the style of Reb Shlomo Yosef Zevin. He created a certain style of writing, Encyclopedia Talmudis. He was a brilliant writer. In Hamoyadim B'Halacha, he sums up the main sugyas of every Yom Tov. In Halacha and Nigla, he has a section, Sukkos Hoshana Raba. He gets into everything about Hoshana Raba. What's Hoshana Raba? Al-Pi Zoyar, Al-Pi Gemara, Al-Pi Halacha, the Torah, the Shulchan Aruch, the Shibbolei Haleket. He brings everything. Reb Shlomo Yosef Zev knew the Rogatchover gone and knew his Svarim very well. He knew his Svarim well, and he brings them constantly in Amoed and Balacha. But this Rogatchover he doesn't bring. It's not his fault, because it's not in the Svarim of the Rogatchover. It's not in the Svarim of Tzafnas Paneach. It's not in the letters of the Rogatchover. It's not in Charles Tshuva's Tzafnas Paneach. So even those who are experts in the Torah of the Rogatchover, and there are not many because it's so hard to learn, this shtickle they don't know. So where is it found? Where is it found? It's found not in a likely place. I'm going to tell you where it's found. And I'm going to read it to you. I didn't have a chance to put it here in the source sheets, but Be'ezer Hashem, I'll put it in, and when the shir gets posted on the yeshiva.net, it'll be in the source sheets over there. There's a sefer called, let me just open it up so I could read it to you. There's a sefer called Igrois L'Ri'iyah. Anybody knows that sefer? To machs mit den Kop. Igrois L'Reb Avraham Yitzchak HaKoyen. These are letters that people sent to Reb Avraham Yitzchak HaKoyen Cook. Igrois L'Ri'iyah. Letters from Rebbes, from Rosh Yeshivas, from Rabbonim that was sent to Rav Cook over the years. Letter 151 is a letter from a Yid, a big Talmud Chacham. His name was Reb Avraham Demant. Reb Avraham Demant is writing a letter to Rav Cook, and he discusses there the origin of Hoshana Raba. In the middle of the letter he says, Hagon, Pe'er Hadoir, Reb Yosef Rosen Neira Yair. Rav Cook passed away 3 years before the Rogatchover. Rabbi Yosef Harav the Dvins Kosavli. Rabbi Dimant writes to Rav Cook that the Pe'er Hador, the glory of the crown of the generation of Yosef Rosen, writes me a letter. He writes to Rav Avram Dimant a letter. Shebiyoim zeh hikrivu b'mei shloime par helem dover shel tzibur. This is the day they brought the parallel. Al shigigas hayra shahoyru shloime ubeis dinoi b'chanukas beis hamikdash lahofre teiras hatzoy. Shloime and his whole bezdin set to obliterate the fast in Yom Kippur k'mavur b'mayit cotton daf tes amid aleph, like it says in mayit cotton daf tes. V'tol bazeh, and this was a mistake. How do I know it was a mistake? Zeh shamru b'toyres koyin in parshas acharei lechukas oilam beis oilamim sheritzoynei loymar b'chanukas beis oilamim gam ken yotzumu v'loike shloima. He saw it in the Toras Koyanim. You have to fast when you make a chanukas beis oilam, not like shloima. V'zeh shamru b'yuma pei aleph inu loy hutar miklaloi af b'chanukas beis hamikdash. Clear? Ve'yiviu al zeh par helam dover b'yoim tesvav. So they brought a par helam dover on the 15th day. In other words, the 15th day of the Chanuk B'Lissim Chasam. V'zem mevur b'hoiri yiz gimel. B'hoira holchu acharoiv yoshvei tzol shenemar vayasu es achag. Ki oz eviu par helam al shigigas hayra. V'lachein nikva yoim zel lekapara. Ad kan loshen hagon Reb Yosef neira yair hanisker la'el. This is, the Rogatchover wrote him a private letter. That I guess he wrote so many letters, a lot of them we have. They're printed in Charles Tshuva, Sofnas Panech, a lot of them we don't have. And he happened to quote it in his letter to Rabbi Avram Yitzchak HaKoyen Cook in Yerushalayim. So it made it into Igris L'Ri'iyah from the letters that Rav Cook received. And he writes there what the Rogatchover Gon shared with him. So therefore in the present books of the Sofnas Panech, I don't think it exists, at least not what I saw in any of the books of the Sofnas Panech. So here we have, according to the Rogatchover, a clear sugi in Gemara, in Tainis, Toras Koyin, and mainly Moed Katan and Hoiriyas, that Hoshana Raba is a day of tremendous kapara, tremendous atonement, and perhaps Shloime, who knew a psashtikal Zoyar and knew a shtikal Kabbalah, also chose Hoshana Raba as the last day of Din, the end of Yom Kippur. So even without all the cheshbonis, this would have been the appropriate day for tshuva, especially for a mistake of Yom Kippur, because Hoshana Raba is the last stage of the din of Yom Kippur, to be mechaper on this day. What I don't understand is that he says from the Rakat Shava that they did it on the 15th day. I don't understand how Hoshana Raba is the 15th day. L'cha'ira loy techeshben, the first day of Chanukah's Habayis was Ches Tishrei, because it's Ches, Tes, Yud, Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, Yud Dalet, 7 days, including Yud. Then you have the second 7 days is Tesvav, Tezayin, Yud Zayin, Yud Ches, Yud Tes, Chof. Hoshana Raba would be Chof Aleph, the 7th day. So that would have been the 14th day, the last day of the Chanukah's Beis HaMikdash. After they finished, they brought the carbon par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur. On the 8th day, meaning on the 15th day, Shmini Atzeres, that's when Shlomo HaMelech sent them home, and they heard the Baskel that the sin was forgiven. The Rakat Shava says, and I assume, I don't know that there's a mistake here, that it was B'yom Tesvav L'Sim Chasam. That means it's something strange. That means that the Chanukah's Beis HaMikdash started on Zayin Tishrei. So Zayin, Ches, Tes, Yud, Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel. Right? So now you have to understand what happened. Did they wait a day, Yud Dalet, and then they started again? Or he holds that the second set of 7 started Yud Dalet. The Pashtus, it started on Yom Tov, it started on Sukkot. But if it started Yud Dalet, then you could say Yud Dalet, Tesvav, Tezayin, Yud Zayin, Yud Ches, Yud Tes. Chof was the 7th day. Chof Aleph was Hoshana Raba, and they brought the Par Helam Dover, that would have been the 8th day. And that's when it was over. And by Yom HaShmini would mean Shmini Atzeres, which is not a problem, because Shmini, Rashi says, means Shmini Atzeres. It doesn't have to mean the 8th day of the celebration. But that would be a psashtikal chiddush, how we came to that. Even if you learn Al Pi Pshat, Hoshana Raba would have been the end of the celebration, the last day of the celebration, the 14th day. But it says clearly here, B'Yom Tesvav, in this letter, the way it is quoted. I want to, however, finish off with one more gedank that maybe brings it all together, and that is a shtickle Bnei Yissaschar on Hoshana Raba. You know, the Bnei Yissaschar was written by Reb Tzvi Elimelech of Dinov, who was one of the great tzaddikim and rebbes of his time in Poland, in Dinov, a student of the Chayza of Lublin, a student of the Koznitzer Magid, a student of the Apterov. Reb Tzvi Elimelech Shapiro of Dinov, or as they called him, Reb Hersh Melech, wrote many, many svarim, including Bnei Yissaschar, including Igra de Pirke, Derech Pikudecha, Igra de Kala, and many others. In 2 of his svarim, Bnei Yissaschar on Tishrei and Igra de Pirke, he brings a Torah, his own Torah, that he developed about Hoshana Raba. Reb Tzvi Elimelech of Dinov was born Tov Kuf Mem Gimel. That's 1783, and he passed away Tov Reish Aleph, 1841. So in his Maimorei Tishrei, I think it's in Yud Beis in 12, he says something fascinating about Hoshana Raba. He says as follows: all yeshiva bachrim know that there's a huge argument in Gemara between Reb Meir and Reb Eliezer, and it's one of the yesodis of the yeshiva sheshirim and Masechta Gittin. If Eidei Chasima Karti or Eidei Mesira Karti, meaning what gives a document its main power? The Chasima, the signature of the witnesses who observed loan or whatever it is. The husband said, I want to write a get, and they signed the document. Eidei Chasima, it's the witnesses of the signature, that Karti. They create the krisis, they create the legality of the divorce, or whatever the legality it is of the document. In this case, it's divorce, karti, from the word krisis, chat, karis. It's Eidei Chasima. Rebbe Eliezer holds no, Eidei Mesira Karti. The signatures are there mipnei tikkun ha'olam. It's a rabbinic obligation, it's not essential. What really gives the document its power is the witnesses who watch the Mesira, the transmission, the giving of the document, say from the husband to the wife, and there are witnesses who observe it. That is what gives the document the validity. MS, the Chachamim wanted you should also have signatures on the document in case those witnesses are gone, so you could always verify the signatures. But according to Reb Meir, the Chesima is what's the most important thing, so that the document itself validates itself. According to Reb Eliezer, no. What validates the document is not the document itself. What is it? It's The process of giving the document from one party to another party in presence of witnesses, that is what creates the karti, the krisis ede mesira karti. It's interesting, usually we don't say halacha ke Rabbi Eliezer, because Rabbi Eliezer, Chazal say shamutihu. He was excommunicated at the end of his life. He was banned. The famous Gemara in Baba Metzia, Tanur Shalachnoi Daf Peidalet, he was put in Cher. Not only that, Rabbi Eliezer, Tosfos says in Beitza, was Mitalmidei Beis Shammai, and we usually don't follow Beis Shammai. Here, halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer. And it's interesting, Tosfos Yom Tov wants to change the version to Rabbi Eliezer, because it bothers him that Rabbi Eliezer gets the halacha. But in most texts, the version is Rabbi Eliezer. This is Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol, the teacher of Rabbi Akiva, lived right after the second Beis Hamikdash. He says, Eidei Mesire Karti, and the halacha is like him. So the Bnei Yissaschar says every halacha exists on a practical level and also on a spiritual level. Yom Kippur is the time of the Chasima. That's when Hashem signs the documents. When is the Mesira? Hoshana Raba. The Zohar says, that's when, as we saw in the first source, the Lashon HaZohar was, that's the time, Piskin Nofki Mebei Malka. That's when the notes go out. It's the Mesira. If you say Eidei Chasime Karti, Yom Kippur is the defining day. Rebbe Lezer, like the halacha is like him, is Eidei Mesira Karti, so Yom Kippur is not the end. You still have Yom Shvi Shel Arava Hoshana Raba. But why was the halacha like Rebbe Lezer in this case? So the Bnei Yissaschar suggests the following. This is quite innovative. There's a Zohar Chodesh Parshas Eicha. Rebbe Lezer was a Gilgul of Reuven. Rebbe Lezer HaGadol was a reincarnation of Reuven, the oldest son of Yaakov. And that's why in the whole Shas he's called Rebbe Lezer HaGadol. Why is he the Gadol? Because Reuven was the first boy. He was the Gadol. The B'chor is called the Gadol. He was the oldest. Rebbe Lezer, from all the Tanoim, is called Rebbe Lezer HaGadol. Rebbe Lezer is the Gilgul of Reuven, and that's why the Zohar says something very, very intense. Rebbe Lezer had 10 colleagues who were all killed by the Romans. Asara Aruge Malchus, the greatest of the generation. Rabbi Shmuel, we just read about them on Yom Kippur, Eila Eskira, just as we do Tisha B'Av, Arze Halavonain, Adire HaTorah, Balei Trisin, B'Mishnah, B'Gemara. Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Chanina ben Tradin, Rabbi Yehuda ben Dama, Rabbi Chutzpis HaMeturgeman, etc. Not Rebbe Lezer. So the Zohar says that the 10 Aruge Malchus, as we know, were a reincarnation of the Aseres HaShvat. We know in the story the Roman barbaric sadist asked Rabbi Shmuel, what's the punishment for stealing a Jew and selling him? And he said nobody was ever punished for abducting Yosef and selling him into slavery. And he kills them for Mechiras Yosef. So the Zohar says they were a reincarnation of the 10 Shvatim who were involved. 10 Shvatim. Rebbe Lezer was a Gilgul of Reuven. Reuven was not there when they sold Yosef. But Reuven was the one who throw him into the pit. And when Yosef was in the pit, he was afraid he's going to die. But Reuven ultimately allowed them to save Yosef and sell him, because he got him into the pit rather than having him killed immediately. They wanted to kill him. So Reuven did not sell Yosef. Reuven only had Yosef thrown into the pit. So what happened to Rabbi Eliezer? The Gemara says in Masechtas Avodah Zarah Daf Tezayin Amud Aleph that Rabbi Eliezer was kidnapped because he was teaching Torah, and they took him to be executed. And the executioner said to him, "You're such an intelligent man. Why do you waste your time on such stupidity?" Dvarim b'Teilim Torah. So Rabbi Eliezer says, "Neman alai adayan." The judge, I trust. He thought Rabbi Eliezer is saying, "You're right, I trust him." So he says, "Since you regret what you did and you agree with me, you're off the hook." And Rabbi Eliezer is saved. Because Reuven caused Yosef to be in the pit, so he had the fright of death, but he never sold him. So therefore Rabbi Eliezer
remains alive. That's what the Zohar says. And this explains also Kabbalistically. When Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai speaks about Rabbi Eliezer, what does he say? He was one of the students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Chamisha Talmidim Hayolai. What does he say about Rabbi Eliezer? Boir Sud She'enei Ma'abei Tipa. A cistern covered with plaster that doesn't lose a drop. Whatever you share with Rabbi Eliezer, it goes in forever. He doesn't lose a tippa. Boir Sud She'enei Ma'abei Tipa. Yisachar says there's something deeper. The Zohar says, what was the real sin of the Shvatim? It was as a result of what they did, Yosef ended up in the house of Potiphar. Because of that, the wife of Potiphar tried to seduce Yosef. The Gemara says in Soita, Vayavai habai salasis malachtoi ravu shmua. One of the views is, Lasois tzrachav. Yosef surrendered. The last moment. Rod muzdi yoiknoi shel Yaakov aviv b'chaloin. He saw the image of his father in the window and he abstained. But as the Gemara says, Asara tipos, 10 seeds of sperm, of procreative substances, left Yosef's body in his desire to be with the wife of Potiphar before he abstained, and ultimately they were diverted, came out from his hands, as the Gemara discusses. Rebbe Eliezer wasn't part of it. Boir Sud She'enoi Ma'abed Tipa. He did not cause the loss of the Tipa of Yosef, because that created such a powerful impact in the life of Yosef that it remained a very deep blemish in the life of the 10 Shvatim, excluding Reuven. And that's why it's interesting, who was the first Tana to be mentioned in Shisha Sidrei Mishnah? The first name in the whole Mishnah is who? You remember the first Mishnah? Divrei Rabbi Eliezer, the first one. He's Reuven, he's the B'chor. He's the first one. He gets the first mention in Mishnah, is the first one of the Shvatim. Now, Zakta B'nai Yisachar, the Medrash says in Bereshis Rabbah Parsha Pei Dalet, Hashem tells Reuven, Atu hu shepasachta rishon l'tshuva. You're the first real Baal Tshuva in life. Because Reuven, we know after the death of Rachel, he went Vayishkav es Bila, so the Gemara says in Shabbos that he didn't actually sleep with Bila, but he Bilbel Yitzue Aviv. He took Yaakov's bed out of the tent of Bilhah and he put it in the tent of Rachel. And this was a very serious sin of interfering into the Makam HaShchina, into the intimate life of Yaakov. And for the rest of his life, Reuven was doing tshuva. In fact, that's why he wasn't there when they sold Yosef, because they were eating. Rashi says, Halach l'sakil, and he was fasting. Why was he fasting? Because 9 years earlier, he confused, he intervened, he interfered, he meddled into the intimate business, so to speak, of Yaakov Avinu. So 9 years later, he's fasting. You're the one who's the first Baal Tshuva. The first Baal Tshuva. And that's why your grandson is also going to open up with Tshuva. Hoshea came from Reuven, and the opening of Hoshea, we say in the Haftarah of Shabbos Shuva, is Shuva Yisrael Ad Hashem Elokecha Ki Chashalta Ba'aveinecha. That's Reuven. Zakte B'nei Yisachar, a gewaldige Wort. Since Rebbe Eliezer HaGodel is the Gilgul of Reuven, so any halacha that's connected to Tshuva, he's the Paisek Achra. He is the Paisek Achra when it comes to Hilchas Tshuva, because he comes from Reuven. And Reuven had a unique sensitivity because of his life story to Tshuva. So therefore, when it comes to Eidei Chasim and Eidei Mesira, which is relevant to the whole Zman of Tshuva, Yom Kippur versus Hoshana Raba, the halacha is like Rebbe Eliezer, not like Reb Meir. Eidei Mesira Karti, in other words, Hoshana Raba is the Gemar Yoim Hadin. Now the Medrash Rabbah says in Chukas that when Moshe comes up to the heavens, he hears the Rebbeinu Shalom saying over a Mishnah. Which Mishnah? The Mishnah in Meseches Para, Perek Aleph, Mishnah Aleph. Machloikus. How old does the red heifer have to be? Para Aduma, how old? It's not a calf, it's a cow. How old? Rebbe Eliezer Omer, Egla bas Shnosa, Upara bas Shtayim. Chachamim Oimrim bas Sholosh bas Arba. Rebbe Eliezer says the para is 2. Chachamim say the para is 3 years old or 4 years old. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, this is what you do? This is what you do? all day. So he says, I'm going to have a child. His name is going to be Rebbe Eliezer. And he's going to say, Para Bashnayim, Eliezer B'ni Omer Bashnayim, Chachamim say Bas Sholosh. So Moshe says, Yehi Rotzen Sheyeheze Mechalotzai. I could only wish that this Rebbe Eliezer becomes one of my children. And the Medrash says that's why it says in Parashas Yisroi, Shem ha'echad Gershom, v'Shem ha'echad Eliezer. Moshe has two sons, one Gershom, one Eliezer. Should have said the name of the first one is Gershom, and the name of the second one is Eliezer. It says Shem ha'echad. He's like number one. He's not number one, he's number two. It's not fair to make number two number one. Shem ha'echad means Shem ha'meyuchad. Why? Because this is what Hashem said, you want Rebbe Eliezer to be one of your descendants? Here you have him. This is Rebbe Eliezer. Now, this medrash is very difficult to understand. Eliezer, the son of Moshe Rabbeinu, lived 1,600 years before Rebbe Eliezer. What do you mean, Eliezer, his son? That's the Rebbe Eliezer of Masechta Parah. And whoever heard that Rebbe Eliezer HaGadol was suddenly an Einikel of Eliezer, the son of Moshe? And this has to do with Eliezer and Chumash and Parshas Yisro. It's almost 2 millennia apart. What's the connection? And why is Moshe so interested that this Rebbe Eliezer should be his descendant? So Bnei Yissaschar gives one possible homiletical interpretation. And he says Rebbe Eliezer was the master of Tshuva. And Moshe Rabbeinu heard that he says, Para is Shtayim. Para is Bas Shtayim. Para is a Para Aduma, which represents the cleansing of Tumah, the cleansing of ultimate impurity, which represents the antithesis of Atem Hadveikim B'Hashem Elokeichem Chayim Kol Chamayim. And Rebbe Eliezer says Para Bas Shtayim. Para is 2. So Moshe says, I want him to be one of my descendants. Why? The Gemara says in Shabbos Peivav, Hashem gave 2 days to prepare for Matan Torah. V'kidashtem hayoim u'machar. Moshe came and said, Hoisif yoim echad midaita. We need a 3rd day. So Moshe adds another day to prepare for Matan Torah. Not only 2 days, but 3 days. That's when you're preparing for Matan Torah. And what happens when you violate Torah? So Rebbe Eliezer initially said, Para Bas Shtayim. You have 2 opportunities for cleansing. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. But Moshe Rabbeinu, Hoisif yoim echad midaita, Moshe added 1 more day. So Moshe says, I want Rebbe Eliezer should be one of my students. I want Rebbe Eliezer should be one of my descendants. I want Rebbe Eliezer should say that you have not 2 times, you have 3 times. Not Para Bas Shtayim, but you have 3 times. So Hashem says, no problem. Shema Echad Eliezer, Rabbi Eliezer is going to embrace your view. Where does he embrace it? Eidei Mesira Karti. When he said Eidei Mesira Karti, it wasn't only a halacha in Dinei Shtoris, it was also a halacha in heaven. That's Pshat, he says in the Pasuk, Tiku b'choyder shevet b'kesel le'em chagenu, ki choik li Yisrael hu, mishpat le'lekei Yaakov. What's Pshat? Ki choik li Yisrael hu. When you have a law for Jews, it's also mishpat le'lekei Yaakov. It's also a halacha for Hashem. Whenever there's a halacha li Yisrael, it's also a mishpat le'lekei Yaakov. It's a law that Elokei Yaakov also abides. So when he says Eidei Mesira Karti li Yisrael, it's therefore also a mishpat le'lekei Yaakov. So Rabbi Eliezer says you have 3 opportunities, not just Yom Kippur, but also Hoshana Raba. And that's why it says in Tehillim Perek Chav Beis, Hoishi'eni mipi aryeh u'mikarnei re'emim anisoni. Help me from the mouth of the Aryeh, the lion, and from the horns of the large re'em, of the large bull, from the horns of the re'emim anisoni. Yes, answer me, respond to me. Aryeh is an acronym. Aryeh, Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom HaKippurim, and Hoshana Raba. Aryeh, Aleph, Reish, Yud, Hey, Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom HaKippurim, Hoshana Raba. But the Bnei Yissaschar says, that says earlier, Shalom and others, he says, based on an Aleph, which is also Elef 1,000, Aryeh is the gematria of Ksiva, Chasima, and Mesira. Writing, signing, and giving over. Hoshi'eni mi pi aryeh. Help me from all the three stages. Be here with me throughout all the three stages. Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Hoshana Raba, and Aryeh, Gematria, Ksiva, Chasima, Mesira, or Mekarne, Reimim, Anisani. Reimim is Reish, Mem, Yud, Mem, 2 times Reish, Mem, 240. He says there's 240 hours from the beginning of Rosh Hashanah till the end of Ne'ilah, and there's 240 hours from the end of Yom Kippur till the beginning of Hoshana Raba. So Mekarne, Reimim, Hoshi'eni, mi pi aryeh. Be here with me, all these stages of Ksiva, Chsima, Mesira, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Hoshana Raba. Or Mekarne Reimim from both sets of 240 hours, from Rosh Hashanah till the end of Yom Kippur, from Yom Kippur till the end of Hoshana Raba, till the night of Hoshana Raba, from the end of Yom Kippur till the night of Hoshana Raba is 240 hours. Answer me. B'meila, we have here a fascinating thing. He has this whole pilpul in Parah. L'poil, you see, like the Rakat Shaver, that Hoshana Raba became a Yom Kippur because they were makriv a par, Helem Dover Shel Tzibur, and he gets into the whole issue of par and para. Par is Gematria Man Sapach, which the last letters of the alphabet, which are the Hey Gvuris. It's a whole separate thing. I'll call upon him. What do we have in summation here? The whole Yom Tif of Hoshana Raba that came to be established as a Yom Tif, not only as the 7th day of Sukkot, but also as a Yom Tif of Kapara, happened from the mistake of Bezdin. On Yom Kippur, from that mistake came the great Yom Kapara of Hoshana Raba that they delayed till that day. In other words, when you look at a mistake that you make in your own life, so if you know how to deal with the mistake, confront the mistake, transform the mistake, from that comes a Yom Tov, from that comes Hoshana Raba. A good Moed and a good Yom Tov. Water? You gave me. Amen.
I'm confused about. I'm just plain confused on one thing.
Yeah.
The Esser Shvatim, right, who are connected to Reuven Malchus. Reuven was one of those 10. He's not one, not him plus another 10. He's one of the 10.
Good to Shaila. You hear his Shaila? 10 Shvatim. You didn't have Binyamin there. You didn't have Yosef, so it's 10 Shvatim.
Right, it's fine.
Good to Shaila.
Yeah.
Let's ask a better question.
Yeah.
How many Shvatim sold Yosef? 9, because Reuven wasn't there. So why the Asara Rugei Malchus?
One Keneged Hashem.
So the Shalah answers that since it says Shitfu LaKadosh Baruch Hu Imahim, the 10th one, the minion was Hashem, and that was Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva was a Ben Gadim. The Rambam says that a gate is Mesiachis L'misha Amar V'Haya Ha'elam. As is of the Shalah. That's the Pshat Yotza Nafshoy Be'echot. Gemara in Brachas, Amachalef, Rabbi Akiva Yotza Nishmosei Be'echot. Rabbi Akiva is connected to Echot. That's what Barshas B'chukay say. Ha'asiri Yeh Kodesh Koil Asher Yaver Tachas HaShevet. Right? The Asara Rugei Malchus is Tachas HaShvatim. Ha'asiri Rabbi Akiva Yeh Kodesh L'Hashem Yotza Nishmosei Be'echot.
When the Rogatchover said the 15th day, carbon can be brought till Salayla?
No, the carbon had to be brought by Foshkia.
Oh.
Yeah. You could burn the fat later, but the blood you have to sprinkle by day.
But if it can't interfere in the Chanukah, it has to be at the 15th day. Like
that's why he says it was the 15th day. Right, but I don't think they could do it on
Shmini.
They couldn't do it on Shmini Atzar. It's a Yom Tov. You can't stand be makruh.
After Yom Tov, not
Bishamai Besilo.
But the 7th day of Sukkot is still the Chanukah's Havayas.
You want to know how they
have
did?
to be
So
the
he
Simcha.
tainas that it was the 15th day. No, there was no Chanukah's Habayis anymore. That's what he tainas.
Makes
There was
sense.
no,
If it's still
that's
the
what he
7th
says.
day,
Yom
then-
Tesvav. It's Achre. It's a mistake. Achre.
Just to be myself, Slachno Kavachimer,
Yeah.
the whole, according to what I saw in my first say, that piyut was disyasid on Matzah for Matzah Yom Kippur, not for Matzah Shabbos. And Kavachimer, because that's when they were the Shkoga was.
So the piyut of Hamavdil was written from Mitzvah
was
Yom
written from
Kippur.
Matzah Yom Kippur, and Kavachimer,
Some Sefer says.
and so it's brought down like that. And therefore the Kavachimer, which was when I get to Yom Kippur in that year, was mamash.
Very nice.
I think the most of that.
That I saw the Pnei Menachem says. The Ger Rebbe, the Pinchas Menachem, the Pnei Menachem says Slachna Kal V'chomer. It was the Kal V'chomer from Yom Kippur, yeah.
From Yom Kippur, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Good.
Maya.
It's the first time I've heard you be hasty.
Even according to the Rabbi, it was a one-time event. They could have brought the Par Hamdavar any time.
Yes.
It happens to be they brought it then.
Yes.
So why would there be a kvias of Slicha Kapar L'Daris for Hoshana Raba?
guess,
And
yeah.
it doesn't substantiate the Yerushalmi and the Zayar. It happens to be maybe, like the Rav said, perhaps he chopped that day because there's already
he knew
some
what
Muslim.
Hoshana Raba
But
is.
to say that Klal Yisrael is Kaveh L'Daris, you don't find any other Muslim Kapar Hamdavar was brought on a particular day, which they could have brought any day. That Klal Yisrael makes it a Yom Slicha Kapar for thousands of years.
Right. But remember that Par Halam Dover was something unique in
Of
history.
course, it's a very unique carbon. It can't be brought unless there's
In other
exceptional
words,
circumstances.
Say so. When the whole Klal Yisrael was Neschaper, it was a mokum to be
It was a
Kaveh.
grace Yom. It was a grace
Say the
Yom.
whole Jewish people, it was a pchin of Salachti Kitvarecha. That the whole Jewish people was atoned. It's a unique thing. It's like a shtickle Yom Kippur. Just like the first Yom Kippur was Salachti Kitvarecha, this is the same thing that happened.
If they would have done it Zayin Cheshvan, it also would have been a special day for a special carbon, for a special tzibur.
But you could ask the same thing on Yom Kippur. Same thing.
There was.
Moshe came down, then he gave the luchas.
Yeah, but that's Al Pi HaDibur. That's something else. The Eibishter was Keveya, that this is Yom Slicha, and there was a Cheshvan of the Yomim, and, he was Ayla, and he came back. Whereas this, I'm not saying Avad, it's a tremendous Chiddush.
I mean, you could say it on Chanukah, you could say it on everything.
No, but I'm saying Lagabi
Chafei
this.
Kislev is a Yom
This
Tov,
doesn't,
they would have won it.
this doesn't substantiate the Yerushalmi and the Zayar. It happens to be, it was talking about a big day. It was a
Unless
huge
you
day.
say Shlomo chose it for that reason.
Which is perhaps.
Right, perhaps. But also it means the Zohar was written afterwards, remember this. So if the Zohar took this into Cheshbon, it's mamtik how it becomes a Yom Kapara. That's the part.
But it's not, per se, it's not a din halam davar that it's kavila deiris that you have to commemorate
There's
that
no
day.
such a
It's a din of kavanas.
Right. And a Chanukah.
The Gemara says in Yima that there was more than one. He saw more than one. On the Berachos, he saw.
Sira Varzar also.
Sirav Edazar, yeah.
Oh, not just.
Par Halam Davar, which is the same idea. But that's an event of Avodah Zarah.
There was another time that they did.
That the Gemara doesn't say.
So we know one. And then there was, but
Maybe. I love that gets that.
It doesn't say exactly when it started. Zan Tishur or Ches Tishur.
The Pashtus let it meant 7-7, and it was Ritzufim. It says Shiva and Shiva, and Abba Asar. Why say Abba Asar? So we know, because the answer is it's Ritzufim. If it's not Ritzufim, then you don't have to say they violated Yom Kippur. You have to say it was Ritzufim, because if not, how do you know they violated Yom Kippur? Maybe it started Beis Tishrei, when Beis Gimel Dalet Hevav Zayin Ches. There was no, or Til Tes, right? Maybe it started Gimel Tishrei. So there's no cheshbon that it violated Yom Kippur. So you have to say that 7 and 7, the pasuk says after that 14, in other words that it was behemshech echad. Because that's the only way you could prove that it happened Yom Kippur. You understand what I'm saying? So now, so a pashtus it happened ches. Ches tes yud. Yud was the third day, then yud alf, yud beis, gimel yud aleph. Unless you say it started one day earlier. So yud, right, was the fourth day, zayin ches tes yud, yud aleph, yud beis, yud gimel, and then started yud aleph.
Erev Sukkot started the second.
It would be a pella because it's mashma that the second 7 days were Yom Tov. It would be a shtickle pella to say it, but that's how he did it. Maybe he did. That's how he's learning. He's learning. Hoshana Raba was the end of the Chanukah Sabayis already. Was the Par Halam Dover on Yom Tov Cholamayit, and then Shmini Atzeres was Shilach and they had the Bas.
Maybe it's Laila, he leaves out Yechavet Das, the end of the pasuk. Is it possible? Shikol, like there was
no das.
There's no das.
Right. Very good. It was Laila. It was a concealment, a Helen. Yeah. Taifas given. Ja. Van je giet of shalom met je.
He said it.
Thanks. You said it over?
I heard it from you.
The beginning of Golos is Bruder Lichten grew up. Du gehst fast. Typhus, everything.
Is it clear when they discovered it was a mistake? At what point did they discover it was a mistake?
I guess at some point, I don't know when. Doesn't say.
Thank you.
Covered I covered, I forget I covered. Amen.
I emailed you a couple of times. Thank you very much.
What's your name?
Dirty.
Chavod. Chag Sameach. Hoshana Raba. A lot of hatzlach and everything. Happy year. Chag Simcha.
Schkoich. Some cyber that you being a mavdel.
Was auch good.
Was musucht das Matzah Shabbos. I've finished geschrieben Matzah Shabbos. The whole thing is for Matzah Yom Kippur.
Also ich sagte, some
The
cyber.
second part, every meters has
Yeah.
the second part that you say only that the Welt feeds us doing no Matzah Yom Kippur. He writes the whole thing really has a
The whole
Shabbos.
Hamavdel is for you to say.
It's a I forgot what Shiva. He's talking about Chataspani, Zerayin Chataspani. Why you say first your Palusa, then you say first you say the money and then you say your kids.
Right.
But not even like God. You know what I'm talking about? Here's a psach some about it. He writes really that 8 minutes it's for Yom Kippur.
Right. Okay.
It's good.
Ja, ik het mooi, ik het jante en ik het kittel zo, je te orde.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.